All right. Hello, everyone. We are, actually here live with people here now. Welcome to the Spoken Misc, the podcast about anything and everything, but mostly we're connecting with people. This is the first group episode of 2021, and it is about gaming and a lot of questions that I currently have about gaming. And me and my friends here are going to just discuss and talk about the answers to these questions, then probably just, go off on tangents about our favorite games, etc., what we prefer, all things gaming. We're probably gonna play games later, but I wanted to check in with you guys and see how y'all were doing. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
I don't want to be the first to speak, but yeah, I'm doing okay.
All right, cool. Oh, also, in case you don't know, these are my buddies Chris and Quinton. I don't want to dox your guys' last names or anything.
No, that's
okay.
fine.
I wanted to ask you guys what.
Do I still hold the record for the longest episode so far?
I think Gabby beat you, and she intentionally did it on purpose.
Of course.
And she had the need to do it because she was like, I am the girlfriend. I am going to be the longest. And so that's what she did. But I wanted to see, I showed you guys the questions. I wanted to ask if you guys wanted to start with one that you thought was better, or if you wanted me to start with the one that I think is a good starting off point.
I have no preference.
It's up to you, man.
Okay, cool. The question I wanted to start off with, and I'm going to write this on the stream in a bit, is based on a quote that I feel terrible because I can't remember who said it. It was fucking someone. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was by Shigeru Miyamoto, and he said, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad." Do you think this statement is true?
Yes. Yes.
I kind of disagree, actually.
Ooh.
I think that a delayed game is eventually good. That part is true, but a rushed game is forever bad. I think when he at the time that he said that, and until somewhat recently, that's definitely been the case and 100% true. But with the fact that they can do software updates to fix things and stuff now, if they release a busted game like Skyrim and all different kinds of stuff, they're playable now. They're good games now, but I think that at the same time, it can leave a bad taste in people's mouth in the case of Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky. No Man's Sky had a horrible release, but now it's a really good game. But I think that there was a lot of people who were put off by it being shitty when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
That it's true and it's not, in my opinion.
I generally kind of I'm kind of on the fence. Same thing too, because we live in a modern day where we can, patch things through the internet, like Nico's pointing out in the chat, and you can fix things. You can fix things that are wrong, over time, and it'll take a long time, and it'll take a while to get there. But however, that I don't think that's a good thing to kind of fall back on. We're waiting for games to be perfect when they should be, as good as they possibly can be when they come out. People are buying a finished product, so if they rush it,
I do agree with you. Yeah, but in a perfect world, sure, but in the way that the game industry works currently, we're just bound to get more releases like Cyberpunk in the future.
I think that all phrases like this, that quotes, shouldn't be, while they're most quotable in their absolute form, shouldn't be applied as an absolute, because nothing's ever an absolute in life. Everything's not just black and white. There's definitely a gray area. So when it says, is a rush game bad, forever bad, I do think that there are notable exceptions to the point. You were saying, No Man's Sky was extremely patched and a great game I've heard since then.
Yeah, honestly,
but I do think
I saw that it's it feels like a completely different game from what was. It was initially.
I'm low-key interested in playing it.
I bought the game on launch, and I was extremely I liked it, I guess, for what it was, but I was still relatively disappointed, I guess. And then when I've played it recently. It's like it's not the same game. I mean, kind of mechanically it feels, they haven't changed like some of the core elements of it, but overall, like, the mining feels completely different, and there's so much more content that it was a rushed game, but it didn't stay bad forever.
Hmm.
Do you think that that's because it had like a good like base skeleton that they kind of like worked on? Because there's a lot
I
of
mean,
things that like I think like because I'm going to use the example of Cyberpunk. I haven't been in the game yet, so no spoilers, please. But like even I can tell that like it has a solid like foundation and it has like a solid like base to work on. But I
yeah,
know it's not like complete, and I know it's not impossible to complete it either. It's just like they were brushed by a lot of factors, mostly money,
yeah.
and I could see them patching this kind of like No Man's Sky to make it better in the future, but it, like so No Man's Sky, I think its premise, like the initial idea that they sold it on, like going to procedurally generated worlds and going to collect things and kind of exploring this universe, was the foundation that they had that was kind of rock solid almost. Because like I've seen gameplay, and like going to space and going to different planets is probably the one of the coolest aspects about that game, and then the rest kind of just
Yeah.
got fixed in later.
Yeah, I think people were just kind of. It's a typical thing with the way that games are marketed these days, where there's so much hype and like you expect it to be this big, expansive thing, and then when people actually got their hands on it, it was a lot more limited, and it wasn't what they were expecting, and it wasn't what they were led to believe the game was
Yeah.
going to be.
So when
And
do you hold people
that's
accountable then?
right. That's a big problem in the gaming industry these days.
I'm not gonna lie. First of all, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
You just kind of
You're
snuck
ju-
in. And
You're jumping in there. This is
Yeah, I owe
why we keep it
Domino
to
an
5 people.
apology.
It's
Um,
okay, man. Tell him we're
Francisco,
sorry.
Francisco,
But
your question on the stream is covering Nick's face.
Oh, you're right.
that's fine because my hair is a fucking mess. I don't know why it's too long. I
I'll
need a
cover
We
haircut.
want
my
to see.
face.
We want to see those beautiful locks.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me move the logo.
The Beeb.
Or
I
put it
got-
like above you and Chris in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, that's the, I think ideal spot. There's like a good gap where it fits perfectly
Right here.
in between you and Chris. Higher there, beautiful.
Perfect.
I have a little
Thank
bit
you.
of a
Looks good to
delay.
me.
There we go. I see it. Yeah, perfect.
Cool.
Sorry, so I caught some stuff here and there. To jump in, I think that it is I agree it's a huge problem in the gaming industry, but I don't think it's one that's going to go away. It's become increasingly lucrative to just go after the pre-orders and not worrying about whether or not like the content you're pushing out is good. I think that we're just going to see more of that, like, DLC after the game's release, a lot of these huge patches to cover mistakes, because the quicker they push out games, even if they suck, people are in it for the exclusives, and they're in it just for the short attention span they have. They just want to play a new game, and I think especially with COVID, people are getting really burnt out of the games they've been playing. So right
Yeah.
now it's kind of a seller's market. They can give us whatever garbage they want, and we're going to eat it up because we're bored, and we just want to play something.
I hate how true that is, and I've kind of also seeing this as the rise of. I really don't like these, but early access games. Like, it's the cop out. In my opinion, early access games are the cop out way to have a broken as fuck glitchy mess of a game, but still profit off of them. You know, like at least
See,
that's how I've seen a lot of them. I know some are like, we don't have enough, resources to make it better. But then like Fortnite was in early access for.
It still is.
It still
yeah.
is in early access, and it's a fucking complete game that they sell stuff on, that they get
Yeah.
cosmetics on. They have deals with major other companies, but
They
it's
have
early
merchandise.
access.
So
There's
like
Fortnite Nerf guns.
my
Exactly.
position on that is that like early access is good for certain things, and it just depends on how the company is using it for that game. Because like with Fortnite, that game should have been out of early access so long ago. I definitely agree with that 100%. Like the only reason that it's still like succeeding in the way that it is because it's in early access, I suppose. But I think that for games that have a really large multiplayer component, like they need to have early access so that they can see how their servers fare with actual like users, everybody's got different ping, everybody's got a different connection, all this kind of stuff, and how their servers kind of like handle overload and all this different kind of stuff. So I think that there's a lot of details that they need to hammer out with an actual player base versus just doing it all in house. Because once it like if you're designing a game in a vacuum, that's great. But then when they release it and oh god, it's unplayable because all the servers are clogged up and oh I can't connect to anything. Well, that's why they try to iron those issues out in early access.
It's more for like a beta then, wouldn't it be,
Yeah.
rather than early access?
A closed
I
beta,
mean,
I think,
see,
would be
see,
Yeah.
see, the thing is,
We're
it's
open.
the same. It's the same thing, just a different term.
Yeah, like in
Well, no,
practice,
You
it
have to pay
functions
for
the
a
same.
beta?
They
Yeah,
just have
but
a
you
new
don't pay
word
for it.
for it.
You
Yeah, you don't pay for betas. You
That's
sign up
not
for
the-
betas. but-
Minecraft beta costs money, but that's
Yeah,
fine.
but
I don't know.
That's
I don't think
not
you-
the-
I don't think
not
you
the norm,
should.
though.
Yeah, I think that's like a matter of like what you
Um,
Pay for
think.
too many
and,
betas.
and I guess it depends because there's open betas and there's closed betas and all that kind of stuff.
And there's
so
alphas now.
and there's different ways of accessing.
Well, there's
them
been
and all that kind
alphas
of stuff,
forever.
So,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
So
but those were limited to like
I think that-
QA people and not necessarily the general public.
I
Sorry.
think that early access is just another way of doing that through the Steam Greenlight platform.
Mhm.
Can I pose this counter question?
Yeah.
Sure.
To Quinton specifically, not an attack at all. Just you.
No,
mentioned
I
it.
understand.
I
It's a
get what
conversation.
I get what you're saying about it being a way to like test things out and stuff. But the thing for me is with a beta, they aren't really making money right now. They're profiting on essentially a half-ass job. Like they know
Right.
it's not ready or done, and they shouldn't be able to, I think, make that kind of money that they do off an unfinished product.
I 100% agree with you in cases of games that do it like Fortnite.
Oh
But
yeah,
in
like
other,
7 years
yeah,
of
yeah,
open-
exactly. Where they've been in like 0.199999 for forever. So I totally 100% agree with you there. But like I bought Baldur's Gate 3 lately on Steam, and that's still in early access, and it's probably going to be in early access for a long time because they have a really huge plan for what it's going to be. And I think that that's, even though it's like mostly single player, they do have some online component to it, but I think that that's good because it's one of those games where they kind of need to balance out the encounters and all that kind of stuff. Like they're currently collecting data from people who are playing it to see where players are dying and all that kind of stuff to improve the balances of like, okay, so we're going to put this many goblins over here, or they're going to have this kind of weapons so that they can kind of make it playable. And I think that, testing that kind of stuff with the public instead of just doing it in-house is probably good because you're not just testing it with people who know the game like the back of their hand. It's people who are learning how to play it for the first time. So, I think that it's kind of a nuanced issue.
Plus, people learn how to break games. Like a lot of what
True.
people do with games when they first get them is like, try to break it completely, which I both admire and kind of get irritated at because it's like I don't know. To me, like breaking games for the sake of breaking games just seems like a waste of time. But these people just like it's kind of like quality assurance, but from a different level.
Well, I mean,
right? It's like people
yeah,
trying
everyone-
to figure out how to
Speedrun.
speedrun Kingdom Hearts, and they spent, to beat it in less than an hour, but they spend 700 hours learning how to do it.
and that's like it might seem like a time waste to like you, but
Yeah.
to them, like, this adds the fun of the game. The fun of the game is
100%.
beating it in this way. I mean,
True.
Chris, you
Yeah.
watch speedruns all the time. I think speedruns
Mhm.
are boring as shit.
Yeah.
You know, but that's because it just doesn't appeal to me as a player.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's not entertaining, and there isn't value in the content that's created from it. So
Exactly, and it's like that's kind of how I view people get mad about people cheating in like single player games. It's like you're just trying to have fun with the game the way that they want to have fun. Like who
hey,
cares?
you're not playing by yourself, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like in Animal Crossing, I have 200 million bells or something like that. And people ask me, "Well, how did you do that?" It's like, "Oh, I've used a item duplication glitch like that got patched really early on." Oh, dude, that's you just ruined the fun. And it's like, no, that is the fun. Like that's for me, anyways. Maybe not for you, but I
No,
like
I-
to do that kind of shit. Figuring out how to do it. Like
Plus,
Yeah.
I know people also like time skip in Animal Crossing too because like there's exclusive things tied behind like certain dates. Like I remember doing that shit in my DS, like not on Animal
Hell yeah.
Crossing, but in like Pokemon and shit back in the day.
Especially in New Horizons, call me motherfucking Doctor Who, dude. I did that shit.
I was such a purist in Animal Crossing. I first started playing it. Not when it first came out. I waited like a month and a half to start playing it. But when I first started playing it, I was such a purist. I was like, time skipping is bullshit. Like those like your friends coming over and giving you starter stuff, like all the fruits, that's bullshit. It's all cheating.
Well,
And then I played it and I was like, man, this is really boring as shit when there's such limited content based on the time
Oh,
of day
yeah.
and time of year.
Yeah.
Like, fuck it, I'll play however I want, and if they have a problem, I don't know, get fucked.
Yeah, and like Nintendo doesn't have any problems with people time traveling because even the developers have said like if people want to play the game, they want to play it, then let them. Like,
Yeah, you paid for the game. It's your right to play it however you want.
As long as
Yeah,
you're not
it's like-
having.
Fuck someone else over.
Yeah, exactly. At someone else's experience and expense, you're not enjoying it. You know.
And the way that Animal Crossing in particular is designed, even though it's got like a multiplayer component, like you having more money and more stuff doesn't put anybody else at a disadvantage because it's not that kind of game.
If it were based on
Wild,
real life,
though.
it would.
Yeah. What if?
Yeah. It's like, oh, I've got 30 million bells. I'm gonna buy your island. It's 1 star. Like
Prices on another island go
You
up
gotta
because
start-
you're fucking
start a new
inflating the
game.
economy.
Sorry.
Imagine Tom Nook going to your island saying, "Hey, sorry, so we sold your island to this other guy over here because he had 2 billion bells from an exploited glitch. Sorry, all your
Jeff
villagers are
Bezos-
belong to them."
Jeff Bezos
Island
13 has
tycoon.
purchased your island. You have to move out now.
But yes, Gabby, we were talking about Animal Crossing. I'm glad that you're playing it right now. I hope you're having fun.
I just used
I-
an example.
Animal
Yeah.
Crossing was just never my kind of game, and that's totally fine. Like I'm not that I like these collecting kind of games, but it's just like Nico said, like at the pure game, it feels kind of boring to me, and it just kind of like
It's a Zenguard game.
yeah,
You
it's
know,
a
with
Zengarden.
not a lot of progression. Now, I don't want to confuse that with like Stardew Valley is a Zen Garden game as well, but there's a immense amount of progression and things you can unlock and discover. So there's a little bit of adventure to it.
Mhm.
And I'm not bashing on Animal Crossing 2. I played that for a long time. I played the Stonk Market. You know, I
Stonk.
was I was like waking up Sunday morning, like on Reddit for like hours trying to get. I made a ton of money that I still haven't used. But it's just like
I haven't either.
yeah.
I give it away.
Right? Yeah, you're just like, oh, I gotta take all my bells. But it's just definitely a different game. It's like a soft core Zen game with a little bit of adventure and a sandbox. It's a sandbox as well,
Mhm.
and I think that's where a lot of the
What's
lore
soft
comes
core?
to the casual gamer. The softcore game is not like hardcore. It doesn't really take a lot to play it.
Yeah.
You know?
I was
But
joking.
you know what? I'm gonna tie this back. I'm going to tie this back to our original question, which is our rush game is bad, because I know that Animal Crossing was kind of rushed in its development. Like they didn't have as many like activities that they had in previous Animal Crossing games in this one. And I know it because Gabby's told me, a bunch of other people have been saying it on Reddit, but like Animal Crossing had not as many features as previous, iterations had. And I'm not necessarily saying it's rushed, but do you think that this game puts out monthly updates that are pretty much standards of the game from previous iterations? Do you think it's because of this mentality of getting stuff out on a certain time?
I mean, they planned a
okay.
lot of the stuff to be released, so I don't know if it, I guess, falls under the same category. It's rushed, but a lot of the content that they are pushing out now was always planned to be pushed out now.
Yeah. Calendar wise, they
Yeah.
base a lot of stuff on seasons.
And
So-
and I think that like people kind of forget that like when those like New Leaf and all the ones that were on DS and stuff came out, when they first came out, they were a little bit bare bones too. It took a few updates here and there to like make them better and to add more content. So I think that like the way that it's designed is they release the base game and they want to keep releasing stuff as time goes on because they want people to maintain interest and they want people to keep playing the game, not to make money because they're not selling DLC,
Well,
but just because they want people to enjoy the game, which I think is great. But
well, that's the
I
key
agree.
difference.
I mean, the game was in development for 8 years, so it's not like it was rushed.
Yeah.
Dang.
I mean, DLC that costs money when it's adding features that should have been present at release is a problem.
Yeah.
Adding DLC that's free, I understand. I mean, you're not giving like it's like the Spider-Man DLC. I really liked the Spider-Man PS4. Super fun game. Not a whole lot content-wise, but it was fun and I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. And then all the DLCs, I mean, they didn't even add like I didn't even get like an extra 5 hours out of The City Never Sleeps. I got
Yeah.
maybe an hour and a half out of it tops, and that's because I was trying to do all the side shit that they added. That wasn't a good experience for me as a gamer, and it left a bad taste in my mouth for Miles Morales.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
didn't even get that game.
I'm an Xbox gamer. I never touched it.
I wanted
Oh,
to play it
so
because I
good.
like the first
So
one,
good.
but I'm not gonna get a PlayStation 5. I think.
Well,
yeah.
apparently it's on the
PS4.
PS4 too, but
Mm.
like I've heard that it's just the first game with the reskin and less content.
I mean, basically, and it's exciting. I love Miles Morales as a character. Like
Yeah.
even before, like Into the Spider-Verse, he was the first Latino Spider-Man. And I get that I'm a white-skinned guy, but 3 of the 4 of us here are Mexican, and representation matters a fair amount. And it was cool to see another person of color speaking Spanish who was
Mhm.
swinging around New York City being fucking Spider-Man.
And then
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna get
And a
into
better
this.
Spider-Man, and a better Spider-Man. By
I
the
think
way,
I think he's a cooler Spider-Man, and not necessarily better. But to that point, I'm totally changing the question right now, because as someone who was an Xbox player who recently migrated to, not recently, like it's been over a year since, who migrated to PC, seeing that, that Spider-Man who I really adore and I really care about, Miles Morales, being tied to a specific platform, it hurt. It kills me. Like, it makes me mad. Like I know Sony owns Spider-Man, but I don't have the money to go out and buy a PlayStation 4 and a PS4 or a PS5 to play these games. And I don't know, it kind of sucks.
Yeah, man.
It's a good. You're right. I should have just stopped
True.
before.
Got Dogecoin.
Maybe you should have made. Maybe you should have just made a better decision a long time ago and invested in the superior console. I don't know what to tell you.
I bought Halo. I bought
I agree.
Xbox because of Halo, and that's how it stayed until I upgraded
That's
to
it.
PC.
Of course. There you go.
I really don't want to get into the subject because I know that I could go on for a while.
All I know
That's
is that when it comes to like getting butthurt over it only being a PS4 exclusive, it's just fanboy butthurt shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
No,
at the
I
end of the
I
day-
genuinely think that games should not be tied to specific platforms.
Well, you're on a PC. You could not easily, I guess, but you could definitely find an emulator somewhere to play the game without having to buy a PlayStation. I mean,
I don't trust
PS4
emulators, if
emulator.
I'm being honest. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna say.
need a
I'm
beefy
surprised.
computer.
Yeah, I don't trust it.
I don't know how beefy it would need to be.
Probably.
Well,
I
it needs to
had
run-
trouble
it
running a
needs to-
DS emulator before. Like, it was not easy.
I
Yeah.
had
But
issues
your
running a
Intel
PS2
CPU is
emulator
so much better
sometimes.
than Team Red, right?
Well, because it's got to run your system OS and a virtual console as
Get
well.
yourself a Ryzen 9 3900X, forehead.
Okay.
Have you tried it?
Let's just spend all this fucking money to have the perfect computer that can do absolutely everything and then go
Yeah.
broke.
So I can have.
Like you said, just don't be poor.
So I can have ray tracing in Ocarina of Time. That sounds like.
Ray tracing on Minecraft.
Yeah.
Ray tracing on Minecraft is actually great.
Is it really?
Yeah, it does exist, and it's actually
didn't know
really good.
Fuck out of here, dude.
Okay.
Got my 1080p Minesweeper. Go ahead.
Okay, you know what?
Hell yeah.
Let's wrap up this.
Minesweeper, baby.
Let's wrap up this conversation about delayed games and rush games. And I'm gonna ask you guys how you guys feel about Cyberpunk's entire release and how you felt about that entire situation, because I know I got my feelings and I can go on forever, but like, I want to know your guys' experiences.
It's the most fun I've had playing a buggy, broken mess. I think it's a great game, but it's got its very glaring issues. It could be better, but I mean, the fans kept demanding it, and this is what they get. It was 8 years in development, so I think that it should be a little bit more polished than it is, and they deserve all the flack that they've been getting for the PS4 version. But it's still really solid, and I still play it. I put over 100 hours into it, and now the modding community is starting to catch up, so there's more stuff that you can do with it. So I guess we'll just kind of see how it plays out, especially because they're eventually planning on adding multiplayer and more DLC and stuff like that. So it definitely isn't. It's not over yet.
Yeah, there's time.
I mean, I haven't played the game, so I can't really comment too much on the content of it. But I would say that, you mentioned, it was 8 years in development. Even if they were developing it for a different console or a different whatever you want to argue, they had 8 years to patch out a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
get that they switched gears a lot, and it it was a smaller team working on it than working on Red Dead or whatever other argument wants to get made. It's just at the end of the day, if you gave me 8 years, I could probably not on a game, but I could do a lot with 8 years. I think that you definitely had time to get a lot of these more basic bugs handled.
I think
I mean, GTA 5.
Yeah.
let me correct something here a bit, because I know that the game wasn't in development until after The Witcher 3's final DLC, Blood and Wine, was finished, which was 4 years into the pre-writing of Cyberpunk. So all the pre-production stuff was like writing, like the first, yeah. The first 4 years were probably like, writing, getting the story straight, and setting that stuff up.
Because it was an 8-year development cycle, but those like first 4 or so years, it was like all because they went through so many ideas of like what they actually wanted the game to be, that by the time that it came to developing the game, it's like, well, where do we even fucking start?
Like, I remember when a trailer came out and it showed like someone with mantis blades like crawling on the walls, like fucking Titanfall wall running, and they totally had to patch that out because they realized that their models, they wanted to switch to first person, didn't work with that, and then cut it completely from the game. And you could still see like the after effects of it in certain parts of the game, but it's cut content that they realized that they couldn't do with the time they had left.
But doesn't that kind of speak volumes about the promises that these developers are making before even putting real work into the games? I mean, if you're going to promise something like that or hype it up and make it on key frames like that, it doesn't make sense to cut that content. That's what people were buying it under the impression they were getting.
I think a lot of people also kind of interpret it as like what they're seeing is the final product. Like I don't think that there's enough people thinking about it, like especially when Cyberpunk was first like announced, it was still in like the conceptual stage. This is the concept of what we want to do and all that kind of stuff. That's basically what they announced. And at the same time, I do agree that like, yes, it's the company's fault, but also kind of the fans' fault a little bit. Like Mortuous Intra in your chat says feels like it was overhyped and put on a pedestal that it could never hope to achieve. And it's like, 100%. Like, I tried to avoid all like trailers and anything about that game because I wanted to go in with a fresh pair of eyes and I wanted to go in with a fresh perspective. And I enjoyed what I experienced, and I didn't have these super high expectations because I knew that they probably weren't going to be met.
You see, I agree with you. I do agree that I think that people overhype themselves. I actually did the opposite of you, and I consumed everything I could from the media. Like, I took in everything, but I also did not let myself get overhyped. I just followed it because I think the world that Cyberpunk is set in is just utterly fascinating. Like, I love that idea and I love the world, and it was mostly like the lore and the writing that like I was exploring. You guys know my background. I love like world building. I love stories and stuff like that. And so just seeing it being put together and just hearing people talk about the lore of stuff, it like fascinated me and filled me with like a lot of wonder. And that's what I knew. What?
Sorry, I know it's really important to me to ask the question to Quinton. How the fuck do you keep your room so clean, man?
Oh, it was thrashed before. I literally made my bed. My room was actually messy. I made my bed before we started.
My bed is covered in all of my clothing. It's a fucking trashy.
I mean, like,
I'm highlighting it.
There's junk on my bed. There's,
it kind of passes,
but
I would see you're hiding it.
I try to hide it behind my chair.
Hey, Nico. Hey, Nico. On the bright side, you don't have a waifu pillow on your bed right now.
Yo, word. That's true, though.
That's true.
Listen, that's not really my choice. That's because Haley won't let me.
Anyways, back to the discussion I had.
Sorry, go ahead, man.
But like, I didn't get myself overhyped because I knew what CD Projekt Red's strengths were going to be. I recently replayed The Witcher before Cyberpunk came out, and you can see all the faults as a developer. Like, their AI is really shitty. Like, honestly, like if you play The Witcher and you like actually just sit in a town and you realize everything's fucking dumb. They're all props. But the story of the characters that you're playing as, that's their strength, and that's always been CD Projekt Red's strength. And I think what happened when people got overhyped, they started comparing it to like the GTAs and the Assassin's Creed of the gaming world, which are AAA games. And I wouldn't say CD Projekt Red's a AAA developer, not even now. I would say they're like a triple B developer, if that's a thing. They're like really well praised, but they're not as big or as huge as an Activision or an EA or an Ubisoft
Or a Nintendo, yeah.
or a
No,
Nintendo.
yeah.
And I think that people kind of like expected that level of, craftsmanship from them, which I'm glad, like, that people kind of expected that from them, because that means, their company was doing good enough that people would expect that. But when you really look at their last game, which was The Witcher 3, like all the stuff that's wrong with Cyberpunk, I already kind of saw in The Witcher 3. But then everything that's great about Cyberpunk, I also saw in The Witcher 3. So
Yeah.
I think it's a mixture of people overhyping themselves and people getting rightfully disappointed by the stuff that was cut and was promised. And it's like nobody really, I think, gives it like a fair, complete, total look over of everything.
Yeah, and I think that like some people are also just kind of like it goes back to the earlier point of people's expectations being too high and expecting too much stuff. Like I think that a lot of the stuff that people are demanding and asking and like that they wanted out of Cyberpunk was like, oh, they wanted it to be like this is a life simulator in Night City, but that's not the game that it is. Like it's Far Cry in the future.
Himeko took a shit. Sorry, it kind of took away from what you were saying.
What?
Himeko took a shit, and it kind of ruined it.
She went
My
to sleep.
microphone?
No.
My
body pillow.
It just
his
flopped on
body
the floor.
pillow. I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he's gonna slowly fell down.
Yeah.
But I think that
I do think.
Sorry, Chris, go.
I was gonna say that's a good example of an open world game that promises just enough to keep the gamer entertained, but not enough to like overdo it. Is the Far Cry games? I think.
Yeah.
Other than some story-based decisions for Far Cry games, I don't think I've ever played a game that I didn't like from Far Cry. I played at least like 4. Well, I guess DLC is a 3. So I think it's just a good example of a consistent open world RPG based game.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, is like people were expecting it to be this Night City life simulator, and it's like I see people complaining is like, oh, why is there's all the places to eat are all the same, and the NPCs don't actually do anything; they just walk around, and everything feels so lifeless. Because it's like, because you're not supposed to be spending time looking like doing all those things. Like there's a story and there's missions to do and there's stuff to be blowing up. Like it's not The Sims, Cyberpunk. It's you're an edge runner. You're supposed to be on the move all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's backdrop is what it is. And people were expecting it to be a lot deeper, and it's not. But that's fine because of what the game itself is. If you just keep moving from objective to objective, you're never going to get bothered by it. Those tiny little details that just seem so unrealistic.
Well, yeah, but then you kind of, I think, are straying away from an RPG. I mean, or I guess you're going into an RPG in almost like the truest sense, I guess. I know it's antithetical to what I just said, but you're playing a story that's laid out for you with decisions that are essentially just do this, do that. You don't have any free will. You don't get to choose how you play this game. We just want you to do this thing with A and B as your choices. It was like Infamous. Infamous was really cool when they had that karmic system. You're able to play the game, and if you were be a good guy or bad guy, it was really up to you, and it affected the world around you, and it impacted the relationships with even just random passerbys. Like everything you did had a real world application.
And it was kind of the same way with like Red Dead Redemption and your honor system or whatever. Like if you had high honor, then you would get discounts at stores, and people in the town would be nice to you, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, props and background, but
like at the same time, like sure, but when it comes to these RPGs, it really all comes down to the illusion of choice because it's all scripted.
And that's fair.
It just depends on the like variety and the expansiveness of it, and I think that Cyberpunk could have definitely had more.
Well, let's look at what arguably is, I think, the best Bethesda game. At least in my opinion, it's arguable to say that between this and Oblivion, is New Vegas was the best Fallout game, in my opinion.
It took a while. If we're talking about things that were glitchy, that's definitely up there.
And that's fair, but the thing is,
Bethesda's like people use the excuse Bethesda's known for that, but it's like it's not.
I mean, you may be known for it. It's not a good reputation. Yeah.
But New Vegas was phenomenal, and even if it was only the illusion of choice, they gave you a lot of opportunities to make choices and affect the world you were playing in. Because ultimately, if you're this character, the world around you is the world you're living in. I think that to, I guess, kind of say that we should ignore the background, ignore the world that we built and the world that we're affecting in the way that we're playing is to say that nothing you're doing really matters. And so why would I want to play the game if I'm not the hero or the
That's
villain or whatever?
that's true.
Then I'm off the
That's
background.
very fair. But I'm gonna defend
Yeah.
Cyberpunk a little bit because one, there are not as many NPCs in any of these games as there is in Cyberpunk. If you had the slider to a sitting higher than medium, that's just the fact that I want to throw out to people. Everyone
Not as
compares
many
it.
deep. Not as many deep.
No,
NPCs.
there is not as many deep NPCs. I will say that.
Skyrim has a fuckload of NPCs with
Yeah.
their own little quest lines and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
they're all very
Fucking
shallow.
dog.
Yeah, exactly. In Cyberpunk, you have literal thousands of random people, but they literally just say, "Hey," and that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
But like the core NPCs that you all like that you really interact with all have very, very deep
Mhm.
characterization and all this kind of stuff that I think
It's
and
it's
different,
aims for
different ways
quality.
that they can feel about you depending on how you answer their questions and stuff. So I think that when it comes to its core, like it is very well scripted and it's got a lot of really good RPG elements. But when it comes to the open world as a whole, I definitely agree with Nico that it's like there could be a lot more substance.
I agree. Also, thanks for the raid, King Canada. Thank you for stopping
Yeah.
by. I hope you're enjoying the conversation.
Definitely.
But also to Nico's point too, we can move on to the question that I already put on the stream in a bit. I play Cyberpunk a lot differently than Quinton played it. Like there are different play styles that you have with the skills trees that you do. Kind of like how in Skyrim you can be a stealth archer or you can be a barbarian or whatever. But I do think that you're kind of right in that like when you scroll the wheel of choices, it's kind of like yes with blue text and then yes with red text pretty much sometimes. It feels
Yeah.
like the story's like we're going to a point and the point is this no matter what you do, no matter what you say. And I think those are always the worst
for an
kind of points.
RPG, yeah, for an RPG, it definitely feels very on rails, at certain points. And it's like you can say no to somebody, but you're just going to have to come back later and say yes. The only reason that it says no is if you don't want to do it right now, you
Mhm.
know? So that kind of stuff definitely annoys me, but at the same time, it's not locking you out of content based on, a conversation. But I don't know. It depends on how realistic you want to get about it.
That's true. I think it also kind of stems from the idea that like in The Witcher, you're role playing Geralt, and you're role playing somebody who's already established, and they started off with that kind of base, and then just copy pasted that base onto Cyberpunk with V, and then they
Right.
realized like halfway through it's like, oh, you know what, it'd be perfect in first person, and then it'd be perfect if people could kind of make choices. And you could see it in the
Right.
beginning few levels. Like you could see the polish where they started to add more of this stuff in. But then as you get further and further along, you get more and more of a choose left or right in the fork of
Kinda
the road, and you're
railroady.
just going straight
Yeah.
back to the
All
normal.
converges in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I forgot where I was going with that. God damn it! I hate that.
Don't worry. This is a perfect time. If anybody got anything else to add about delayed games and rush games.
I get excited when I hear a game is delayed. That's just a personal thing. I get, that you want games now, but every time I've heard a game is delayed, I've never felt bad about it because I know I could always wait. I'm not dying tomorrow, and I do think that they're not going to make a game worse by delaying it. I just want to say that.
What about Duke Nukem Forever?
You could piss for a long time in that game, and that's like gold for me personally.
Well,
It was pretty cool.
I think that there's a difference between a game being stuck in a long development cycle because they want to improve the quality, and a game being stuck in development hell because they just can't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's
there's
what
definitely a
Duke
difference
Nukem
there.
suffered. Yeah.
I agree. But it was funny to watch other people play because I knew it was going to be shit. Yeah. But I want to move on to our next question, which is a simpler question and good for healthy discussion. What's the best video game franchise?
Kingdom Hearts.
That's just so subjective.
That is super subjective. But all right, Nico, you said it
Yeah.
first. You threw it out there. Defend it. Why is it the best? Because I've never played a Kingdom Hearts game, like ever.
Oh, you're missing
Still
out.
haven't.
No, I mean, okay. I'm arguing that it's the best from a perspective of like nostalgia and personal taste. I would say that is it the best gaming franchise objectively? It's hard to decide what would objectively be a great franchise. I mean, are we talking numbers? Are we talking the popularity of it? Are we talking the longevity of it? Because Assassin's Creed is super long and popular and shit, but I think it's fucking trash.
It's whatever. You're up to your interpretation. If you want to go by pure money standpoint, go for it. If you're going by my personal preference, go for it.
Personal preference, Kingdom Hearts means a lot to me. I really love Kingdom Hearts, and I think it's great. If we're talking like what I would look at as benchmarks of success, probably like Pokemon. I mean, it's been around since '95, and it's been killing it game after game after game until these past few. I mean, people will argue Legend of Zelda was longer and it was better, and there were definitely some really great games, but there were also some really shit games. And the same can be said about like Mario games. Some were innovative, like Odyssey or Galaxy, and they changed the way that you looked at the game, or 64 even. And then some of them were not that. Like the one where the Mario and Luigi, were they the beans? Were they fighting beans or something? It was like coffee. It was a thing. Handheld title. Super
Superstar
weird.
Saga.
Maybe.
That's
Bean
like one
fighting?
of the best.
The only
I never played
fighting
any
game-
like a non-mainstream Mario game, to be honest.
I play a lot of
It's-
non-mainstream Sonic
it's
games,
like
but not
one of the
Mario.
It's one of the Mario RPG style games where it's all the combat's turn based,
Mhm.
and it's definitely it's different.
Fight beans?
You
There's
do
like-
fight.
Yeah, there's like the evil bean person. I can't remember. It's been a really long time. It's
Evil
not a great
bean.
story. It's pretty stupid, but like they're still fun games.
The RPG
like-
games from Mario, like, have contestably been some of the best installments in the Mario franchise. Like, I hear
Yeah.
a lot of good things about Mario RPG, Thousand Year Door, stuff like that.
Paper Mario was one of my
And
favorites.
Mario.
especially when it comes to Mario and Zelda games, it's like I have to disagree that I don't think that there's any games that are, well, besides some of the old like CDI and ColecoVision like educational Mario
The
games.
educational ones,
Mario
yeah.
typing. If you're gonna get really deep into that shit, then yeah, there's some pretty awful content out there. But as far as like the mainline games go, I don't think that there's ever really been a game that has been objectively bad. It's just that there's some that are really innovative and really good, and others that feel uninspired, but by no means are they bad games, I guess. Like the Super Mario 3D World, where they're wearing cat suits, like furry suits, I'm just like, ugh. But when it comes down to a mechanical level, they're well designed and well executed. It's just not my thing,
How do we feel about Giga Cat, Mario, and Godslayer Bowser? Because that's fucking badass, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
I had no
Godzilla Bowser looks kind of nuts.
Hold on, Nico. I got you on this.
I had no idea how badly I wanted to play 3D Land until I saw the trailer, to be honest. And I was like, you know what? If I have to deal with a cat suit to fight
Super
Giga
Saiyan.
Bowser like that, I might
Yeah.
totally fucking do it.
God Slayer Bowser?
And Super Saiyan Cat Mario.
Send him the trailer,
Yeah,
Chris.
What are you talking about?
Hold up, I
It's-
got you,
It's
fam.
the new Super Mario 3D World game.
DLC shit. yeah.
There's like the base game, and then there's a DLC where Bowser goes into super ultra mega rage mode,
Super
and
Saiyan
basically
mode? Like,
he basically becomes Godzilla. And you've seen the Mario in the cat suit. It's like
Yeah.
that, but he's got Goku's hair.
okay,
He's like
so
a
it's
giant
literally just
lion.
fucking like Ultra Instinct Mario versus.
Oh yeah,
Exactly.
versus
It's
versus
fucking
Godzilla.
crazy.
Bowser. It's kind of nuts.
I'll DM it to you. You can watch it later. But
I don't know how
it's
to
pretty-
feel about it.
All right. Well, and as far as my personal thing went, because that was my like objective benchmarking, which apparently hit a nerve with some people.
Hey, tangents are good.
Kingdom Hearts, I really enjoyed it because it was something that was very different from what I'd ever played before when I was a kid. And it's a game that I can consistently go back to and really enjoy the storyline. I really enjoy the characters that were developed, not other ones that weren't developed very well. I mean, I can
I'm gonna show
understand
my
that.
Final Fantasy characters.
I mean, a little bit. They don't have any of their personality from the Final Fantasy games.
Some of them do.
They, I'm sorry.
As a Final Fantasy fan, and Cloud, he had Advent Children personality, which we don't count. That's edgy as shit. It wasn't real Cloud.
I just really enjoy that the characters were people that mattered. And Kingdom Hearts 2, spoiler for a fucking 17-year-old game, get over it. When Goofy gets murked, that was like a really Oh, they're really impactful moments in
He
it.
gets hit by a fucking rock! He dies! For like 20 minutes, you think Goofy's just fucking dead.
Yeah, dude, it's like, oh my god, they killed Goofy.
I remember
Wait.
that.
Wait, hold on. Hold on. So for those of you who don't know what Kingdom Hearts is, it has Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters in this weird like mishmash of a game. I've never played it. I've seen gameplay of it, but hold on, Goofy fucking dies?
Oh, dude, there's so many memes and videos about it.
Out of the fucking sky while you're talking to Goofy, everyone's hyped to move forward and like get to the big fight and save the world, and then a bowler just nails Goofy, and everyone's like, "Oh, Goofy gets hit all the time," and Goofy's just fucking dead.
He just flattens.
They aren't even like playing it like it's like a Goofy. Like, Donald and Mickey are crying, and Donald and Mickey Mickey's like basically fucking never again and runs off into the fucking fray. Like,
they kill like 1,000 Heartless, and Goofy's like, I'm alright. You're like, dude, why?
It's shit like that that makes me not be like, I can't stand the Kingdom Hearts kind of thing for that reason. It's
But
like,
they could.
It's
Gorsh,
so funny.
Gorsh, Sora, it's Sephiroth. Like, what the fuck? Why does it exist?
Okay, it's
Loki,
not my
that's-
favorite franchise, but
Xenomorph.
as a big Disney guy and a big Final Fantasy guy from a young age, Kingdom Hearts was definitely like up there for me. Wasn't my favorite franchise.
I
though.
always felt like it had clashed a little bit. Like, it always just kind of felt a little too uncomfortable for me.
It's very clunky. Yeah, it was very cheesy.
Yeah.
But like, was so fluid and beautiful and well executed. Objectively, like I would fight any of you to the death. It was a great game for the
Everyone
fight.
loves Rust.
I've watched one of my friends who does he streams speed runs of the first Kingdom Hearts game, and like it. Other than the fact that he's trying to do everything as quickly as possible, like it still looks like it was well designed. I just didn't get into it when I was a kid, and I never did after that. And
I couldn't because I didn't ever had a PlayStation 1 or 2.
Like at this point, I've got like 10 console games and 50 mobile games, or a 10-hour YouTube video to explain the story to me to understand Kingdom Hearts 3. So it's like, it's not worth it.
That's kind of how I feel about Final Fantasy, and I know that's going to rub Chris the wrong way because it's kind of the reason why I'm not going to ever, I might not ever touch Final Fantasies because like I know it's all webs of fuckery.
Well, okay, hold on.
Well,
It's
even
not webs because every Final Fantasy game has its own story. Like
Yeah,
legit, you can play
exactly.
1 to whatever. They have the same premise, crystals, magic, whatever. But it's every
You
story
could-
is kind of different.
Yeah, like you could play them in any order. Like you could, like I
Yeah.
did. I played Final Fantasy 15 before I played Final Fantasy 7, and the stories have nothing to do with each other.
Oh,
I played Final Fantasy like 1
Yeah.
to fucking 15. Well, not 14. I didn't play the MMO, but I played like
And it's
almost
like
every Final Fantasy.
Like if you want to play like Final Fantasy 7 Crisis Core or all these different like within the Final Fantasy 7 like storyline, then yeah, you're gonna have to like pick apart each individual piece if you care that much.
There's quite a few.
But like if you want to play Final Fantasy 10, it's got absolutely nothing to do with Final Fantasy 13. Final Fantasy 14 is an MMO. They're all different.
Well, that's why it's the best.
I've never played it.
I had no idea about the Final Fantasy being different games. Common person assumed that all the games are sequels to each other because it's
From the outside,
consecutively.
it seems like that because the character designs kind of feel like they overlap, and you're like, well, which character is from which game? But once you start to kind of get into it, you're like, okay, well, now I know the difference between this and that. Unless it's some Final Fantasy Dissidia like crossover card game fighting system, like Sephiroth and Noctis are never going to crossplay because they're in different places.
I have no idea what the hell any of that means. But I'm going to go to chat for a second because King Kennedy says that Legend of Zelda is the best franchise due to the fact that there haven't been getting games that would be considered bad.
Wind Waker, Skyward Sword.
That was going to be my answer.
I've never played a Zelda game outside of Breath of the Wild. Like not a single other one, just Breath of the Wild. So I don't think I have the ability to talk to this, but Quinton, you said it was going to be your franchise. Might as well ask you why.
I love The Legend of Zelda. It's got a very special place in my heart. I think it's for the same reason that Nico says he likes Kingdom Hearts, is that like it's part nostalgia and it's part like, yeah, I don't think that there's ever really been a bad game. And yeah, you can say that Skyward Sword is not the best game, but it's definitely not a bad game. I think personally, that's my personal opinion.
Never played it.
But I'm yeah, it's like it's kind of almost word for word like the maybe not having to do with so much the characters and stuff, but I don't know. I mean, I played Ocarina of Time a lot on the N64 when I was a little kid, and I really just enjoyed it. And I've kind of fallen in love with that universe and all the different monsters and all this different, the lore and the history and the timelines and stuff. I just all find so fascinating. And yeah, that might not have a ton to do with the game itself, but I don't know. Like we've said before, I just don't think that there's any games in the series that are like objectively terrible. Besides, like I've said before, CDI and all the old school like offshoot shit.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah.
My only like I guess argument against that is that like I've never like I said I've never played any of the Zelda games. It was
Right.
one of the, it just never seemed to kind of like grab me in the way that most other games did. Like even as a kid, like Zelda was one of those games that I kind of just was like, about.
Right.
And I just genuinely don't know what it was at this point because now after playing Breath of the Wild, like, and seeing how they renovated and totally innovated like the Legend of Zelda basically for that, I'm super impressed and I'm super excited for the franchise moving forward, and I'm looking forward to Breath of the Wild too.
Yeah. I think it's just one of those things where I like to kind of compare and contrast how all the different themes and recurring stuff like that are represented over different iterations of the games and stuff like that. So I don't know, I get really into it because I'm kind of a nerd about it, but maybe not everybody is that way. But I don't know, I think that's it. It's just yeah, I like it a lot.
It's got a special place.
Yeah, got a special place in my heart.
That's good. All right, Chris, your turn. What is, in your opinion, the best gaming franchise?
This is tough.
Because I'm gonna hit you with a wild
really
card when it
tough.
gets to my turn. Because we'll keep going.
Best gaming franchise that's evolved over time, I'd say, were the Mario games. And that's just from an objective business standpoint. Like, they've done the most with their IP. They've expanded so much. They've included the cast of a whole bunch of characters. But when it comes to a personal thing, oh man, I had all that time to fucking think of it, and I still don't know. I think it's a cop out because I do enjoy the Final Fantasy games, but I like the strategy part of it a lot, and they've kind of transitioned to a more of an action RPG, which is fine. I still play it. I still enjoy it, and I grew up playing Kingdom Hearts games as well, which were essentially that.
Yeah.
It's just different than what I was used to growing up. So honestly, damn, I don't know. I think that as far as replayability goes and things I would still play today, other than like one Sega Genesis game that, it's not really a franchise anymore, so I can't say it. I would say like Counter-Strike or something like that. Something that I've just sunk a lot of hours into. Back when I played 1.6, like in 2003, all the way up until now, I'll still play Go every once in a while. It's a consistent, not MMO, it's a consistent multiplayer game that I feel like has a good audience. No matter if Valorant comes out or anything else comes out,
People
it's
are still
a
playing
good.
it.
Yeah, it's a simple tactical shooter. It's still a tactical shooter, not as much as Siege, but it's definitely like a move quiet, listen. It's a tactical kind of shooter that I think is gonna live on for a while.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with Mario being one of the most definitely one of the most successful series and all that kind of stuff, and objectively the longest running game series with the fewest bad games. Because I don't know, like I think of some other like really big mascot IPs, like Sonic the Hedgehog.
I was about
Sonic
to
the
say.
Hedgehog has
Pour
some
one out.
genuinely terrible games.
Yo, Sonic 06, looking at
It's-
you, baby.
yeah, you could say Skyward Sword isn't that great, but it's playable. Sonic
I can't-
06,
I can't.
Sonic Unleashed, like
Whoa,
Sonic
are
Forces.
you ripping on Sonic Unleashed, the best game of
Yes.
all time?
Sonic Riders.
Okay,
No,
hold on,
not me.
hold on.
I enjoy Sonic Riders.
Sonic
like
Riders
Sonic
was
Riders.
is that the skateboarding one where they have all the characters?
were
That's hilarious.
It's for
Hoverboarding.
Okay,
Hold on.
Hoverboard racing.
Let's talk.
Hoverboard
Let's.
uneducated assumptions about what boards they were riding.
Sonic Team Racing.
I want to talk
I
about
like
this distinction.
Sonic R.
I want to
the
talk about
old
this
racing
distinction
game.
between the franchises of Sonic and Mario because they both came out around the same time, and they
Won the
both
Olympics.
they have Olympic games together, and that's about it. But one clearly did way better than the other. And I was going to ask you, like, why do you think Super Mario succeeded where Sonic didn't?
I think that it had a lot to do with Nintendo's marketing strategy, especially because they didn't hyper focus on Mario. They had their irons in so many different fires that they were able to sustain themselves to grow to the size that they are today. While Sega threw a lot of dependency on Sonic and some other franchises for sure, but I mean they weren't even able to continue producing their own consoles. They went from being a first-party developer to a third-party developer, and I don't think that it has a lot to do with Sonic itself, but it has to do with a lot with how the company ran itself.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's like Nintendo as a company's like mentality towards their games that kind of propelled it to still
definitely
relevancy?
Like, even then, they were the bigger developer and the more accessible title for family-friendly gaming. And
Yeah,
I think that was probably the biggest difference between them and Sega. And yeah, Sega just made shitty business decisions because I loved my uncle's Sega Dreamcast to play Sonic on. Sonic Adventure. What was it?
Sonic Adventure probably.
Yeah. The one with they escape the city.
Yeah, that's Sonic Adventure.
Yeah, super fun game. Really enjoyed it. I'd still go back
Sonic
and play
Adventure 2, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I played Sonic Adventure 2 Battle on the GameCube, and it's the same game but with a multiplayer add-on, basically.
Neat.
And those games are definitely great. And my dad had a Sega Genesis, which worked for a long time, but then stopped working, which sucks. But yeah, I would play classic Sonic games on that, and they were great. But yeah, I don't think
did they like not capture that same kind of magic, or did they like not innovate as much? Because like in my mind, the reason why Mario succeeds still is because every single mainline Mario game has innovated itself in some way. Like Super Mario Sunshine from Super Mario whatever it was before, Super Mario 64.
64, yeah.
Like the upgrade from 64 to Sunshine was crazy. Like they changed a whole bunch of stuff. And then from Sunshine to Galaxy was even a even bigger jump. And then Galaxy 2 even Galaxy 2 was kind of a copy of Galaxy 1, but it still innovated on that formula. And then obviously the best I think out of all of these, which is Super Mario Odyssey, like totally blew all the rest out of the water with its like taking over possession mechanic. But
Yeah, I think where Mario fails the most is like the games where it's just a repeat of itself, like the new Super Mario series. Like I think I played New Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo DS, not the 3DS or DSi or whatever, the original one. And I haven't had any desire to play any of the newer ones because they just look like the same game with one new power up. You know, so yeah, there's definitely some failings, but when it comes to the mainline titles, I definitely agree that it innovates the most. While Sonic I go fast.
Sometimes that's all you need, baby.
It's true.
Sometimes.
It's true.
Sometimes when you're rolling around at the speed of sound, like
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
no,
lie.
and
Sonic
I agree,
Heroes
and
is
that's
such a
why the
fucking
formula-
banger.
And
Can
that's
I
why
also
the formula
say-
worked so well for so long.
Mario wasn't the first one to fight evil beings. I think Eggman was with the Mean Bean Machine game,
True.
which was a good kind of Puyo fucking
Holy
Tetris
shit.
type game.
Adriana put so many hours into that game.
It's a fun one.
We had one of those classic Sonic game plug and plays after the Genesis stopped working.
Mhm.
And I think she used that thing more than I did just to play Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine.
Mhm.
Love that shit.
I'm gonna admit right here. The last time I played a Sonic game was I don't even remember. Can't remember the last time I played a Sonic game.
Sonic.
I think
Mania.
the one with I played at my cousin's house. The last one I played was with little like those pets. I don't remember what they're called.
the Chow.
Chow.
like
There
Chow
we go.
Punch?
Adventure 2.
So it's probably Sonic Adventure or Sonic Adventure Battle 2.
The fucking busted ass Chow Garden that never really
Chow
did
Garden.
anything.
Hey, it was adorable as heck.
Oh, it's so good. There was the race. It was mini games. There were the races and the chow wrestling.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
that
level
was
with you,
neat.
man. I could never figure out how to get those fucking chow to do a damn thing. They just wander around being fucking worthless the whole time. I fed them so much.
I was gonna say.
You just gotta be good, man. You gotta. It's not just the animals; it's the little skill capsule too. And then
Okay.
you take them to the wrestling, and you just gotta grind it, man. It's just
I
bullshit.
I think
Side
that
content.
Sonic is, and I know this is gonna sound kind of mean, but I think it fell from grace. It peaked. It's over. Sonic's not gonna come back. Even the movie.
Sonic
Yeah.
Mania was really good. They really did a good job, like kind of re-engaging you with the original.
Wasn't even by Sega, though.
Sonic was.
Yeah, see,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
that's
but-
the thing is, yeah, it wasn't it wasn't even developed by Sonic.
Endorsed.
Team. It was a fan game that got published by Sega.
It was
But
It
good.
still was great. Yeah, it was
Well,
spectacular.
it's good because it's
Not
Sonic
not
the Hedgehog. It's Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for the Genesis, but with way more new features.
With cute
like-
chibi Sonic.
Like at first I started playing it, I was like, okay, this kind of feels like the same game, but then it started doing all this new stuff. I was like, holy shit, like it's a
So it's
new
in that second
experience.
stage, and you're like,
Yeah,
whoa!
Yeah, the first stage is like the same shit as the original.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden they've got all these new traps and new ways to launch you across the stage. And it's like, whoa. So, yeah, but the fact that it's based on, a well-worn, or maybe not well-worn, but a game engine that's lasted a very long time.
dated.
I think that not even so much dated, but it definitely has I don't know. It's aged well, the old Sonic games still.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna hit you with what I think is the best gaming franchise, and it's not because it's my personal favorite, but I think about in terms of like how much.
Shut the fuck up about
Better not be
Halo.
Halo,
No.
yeah.
I was
No.
gonna write Halo.
Huh? Nope.
I was gonna-
Nope. And
Wow.
it's not because of any other thing, because frankly, the more I think about it, the more I hate that this is like the best gaming franchise. It's Call
You
of
did say
Duty.
wild card. Oh fuck!
See, I
off.
thought about
Call
that
of Duty.
too.
And I'm going
I
to say
thought
this
about it
because of how successful all of the mainline Call of Duties have been since, I think, 4. It has only gone bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger from then onwards. Sure, they've had flop titles. Sure, they've had titles that suck. Sure, they have whatever. But they remain consistently getting a huge, significant player base every single game, which means some people are buying every single one of these games for $60, buying the skins that they can get for their guns and their characters for $20 per pack. They have gotten so much money from this franchise that I can't think of anything else that has gotten as close to
But-
being a cash cow for Activision as something else is for that company.
It's
But
a hot take, but it's a
you
hot
said-
garbage take.
You
Yeah.
said the same thing yourself just now. You said they've tried to innovate and they've failed. You know why? Because they've invented the wheel and the wheel was great. But if all they can do is the wheel, that doesn't make a good franchise to me. After
But-
all this
So
time-
hard.
I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're
Yeah.
good games. I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
good games.
Right.
Like, not all of them are great. I am saying this they get so much money from this franchise that they don't need to innovate. Because whenever they do, people get pissed, people get hissy, and they say it's a broken game or whatever, but people are still buying, these
But-
games, still buying for skins, still supporting it.
If that's your take, though, Blake makes a really good point in chat, which is EA does it all the time with the sports games they release.
That's
Half
true.
of the time, the new NFL games or MLB games they're releasing aren't even updated rosters. Like, they're not even up to date with the current teams. It's literally the exact same game, and you're just paying more money for it because you like the sport. And
Mhm.
they're not reinventing the wheel here, man. It's
so you can
baseball.
see the new number.
Here's my hot take. I don't consider sports games real games because of stuff like that.
Oh, hold on.
I don't. Fuck
As a
FIFA.
strategy
Fuck
game
FIFA.
enthusiast,
Fuck
they're
FIFA.
the close
Fuck
cousin.
NFL. Fuck Madden. Fuck all these copy
I
paste games
disagree
from
with
year to
that.
year.
I disagree with
Fuck
that.
them all.
I don't
no.
even play sports games, and I disagree.
No,
In certain
they don't innovate. They don't do anything. Like you just admitted, they just copy paste the same shit from the year
Neither
before.
is Call of Duty. So is it a game?
Call of
Yeah.
Duty doesn't just copy and paste. They at least try to change shit.
100% copy and paste.
You can't add
Half
a
of the guns are
story
in
to a
multiple
sports
games.
game, and if that's what you're asking for, you're gonna get disappointed because it's
No, I
literally
mean
like-
because they don't innovate enough.
They did add a single player story campaign to one of the new basketball games. It's an RPG.
Ooh, that's
No, I think I
RPG,
remember
that's
seeing
wonderful.
that. That came out
Yeah.
a few years ago.
I don't know if it's any good, but Yeah, I
guarantee
don't know.
it's not.
Like when it comes to like the hockey games and football games and stuff, it definitely does. Those are games because it's all the strategy of that
Because they were
sport.
games before video games were games.
Yeah, but I think that uh, I only agree with you in the case of the gameplay that I've seen of MLB games. Those are probably the worst because all it is quick time events. So those games are trash. But
How do you
when it comes,
compete in that?
yeah,
I mean, you have to be able to predict because I played the MLB games, not like yearly,
it's
not
they're-
yearly, but I'm a baseball guy, and
yeah, but
it's just guessing pitches, really.
yeah, they're quick time
Well.
events. But like when it comes to like the NFL and NHL games, and even kind of the NBA games, there is a little bit of strategy to it, and knowing the rules of the game, and how to make a pass that's not gonna be icing if you're playing hockey. Or I mean, I don't know if they even give you the option to travel.
Still doesn't make me like FIFA
I don't
anymore.
Yeah, I mean FIFA. Is there a strategy in soccer? I don't know, but
I mean,
run
there
a
is in
lot.
real life
Strategy in all
soccer,
sport.
but not in
Yeah.
FIFA. FIFA's
There
is-
is
has-
100%
just get money from all the people
Yeah,
that
I
buy
play
this
FIFA and
game.
Madden.
Milk 'em dry.
Dude, nah, look, and I hear you that you don't like. I get that you don't like sports and that you're not a sports guy.
Mhm.
I'm not either. But like, if you've seen Gio, for example, play NFL, he just reads the positions of my players and knows what play I'm running. Like, strategy
Yeah.
is absolutely a factor
It's a
in as much
strategy
as it
game.
is in the actual sport.
It's not
All
my
the only
strategy
difference is
game, but it's
you
a
don't
strategy
like
game.
you don't like sports, so you don't like sports games, and I respect that. But you can't argue that they're not games. There's no strategy involved because the same can easily be said about Call of Duty. Play Warzone. All you gotta do is bring the Diamatti, and you're fucking golden, right? I mean, just get the
Yeah.
meta gun forehead, and you can win.
Is it really the meta now?
No, it wasn't meta. The Diamatti was the meta with what's
Damn.
the DRM or some shit. Like they were
I
the
heard
metas,
that's so good.
but it got nerfed and then became good again. But the point is, if you're arguing that like there's no thought process in it, then yeah, I'd say Call of Duty is a great example of a game with no thought process. It's not even a
Yeah,
tactical shooter. You just run guns.
Yeah, I think that that
You
Call
run,
of Duty
die, repeat.
Call of Duty requires a lot less strategy than games that are like a legitimate mil sim or something at least somewhat closer to a mil
A
sim.
tactical shooter.
What was
Yeah,
that
like-
fucking
like-
game
like-
Siege.
like Arma or
Or Siege.
Yeah,
Siege, yeah, that's a good one.
CS:GO kind of. You
Look,
know,
Chris, play that one. Remember you had to buy the trial? It was like a 2-day trial.
Oh, Squad?
Squad, yeah. Fucking
Not the
Yeah.
milsim. I think milsims are different than like FPS multiplayer games, just because it's a sim game essentially. You're branching off from a
Yeah.
multiplayer match, like team and team, to like a sim. And I think those are one's more serious and intense, and you use stuff like Roger, even though never mind, I'm not getting into this.
right? Like
Not gonna get into
Call of Duty. If you branch off from your team, like either you're gonna get killed or you can, if you're good at the game, then you can shred. But in other military-based games, like it kind of requires everybody having a headset and being over Discord and like
Call of
running, more or less running plays.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still think it makes them
Um,
a fuck ton of money, and I
It does, but the game,
Absolutely.
the series has no choice other than to grow when they release a new game every year, and especially the main clientele that the game kind of advertises towards,
which is the
they have
common
no
person.
they have no
Yeah.
problem.
They have
Are we
the
talking about
most reach.
Madden or Call of Duty right now?
Call of
'Cause
Duty.
Either way, it could have been
Call of
both.
Duty.
Because
Oh,
Madden,
yeah.
I think, does the same thing. Everything you
Yeah,
just
no,
said, all those words.
it's 100% both. I think that they're both kind of the same marketing strategy, but yeah, I don't know. Sports games are games because otherwise they wouldn't have tournaments.
Facts. I just don't like sports games. That is,
I don't-
I hate.
I
I,
don't
don't,
either.
I
think
hate
that
sports
they're
games,
boring.
as you could tell.
Yeah, I think that they're boring, but I think that they have a place for people that don't think that they're boring.
People
I
who want to
think-
play sports at a professional level but aren't willing to get off their asses and like.
Yeah.
They want to be the coaches. They don't want to be the players.
It's a lot easier to get a home run when you're doing this.
Yeah. To
You
be
know?
fair,
But
Kinda-
wouldn't like coaching be good for that too? Like if you play Madden, like you could coach things or something. Like wouldn't it be
Yeah.
good for that?
each team has
bet.
what 6 coaches, and that's it. And how many teams are there? So realistically, if you love sports like most Americans do, you're fighting against what fucking 100 and something million other people trying to get the same job. Then
Are
It's
there
just not realistic.
coaches? Are there coaches for like League of Legends and stuff? I'd imagine, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's tons of esports coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Rocket League is like a real big one for getting into. I mean, it's really growing in the esports arena, and it's a game that's very accessible because all you need to do to be good at the game is have mechanical knowledge. Like just learn
Francisco,
how the game works.
What's up?
this is a good segue for your second question on the list.
That's what I was thinking too.
All right. What is it? Oh, should esports be considered equal to physical sports?
No.
Nah, fuck that.
No,
No. No.
it's a resounding no.
I think there should be a separate category. I don't think they're the same.
No,
I
no,
wouldn't put them on the same thing.
they don't deserve the same. I mean, look, it's cool to be like good at a game, but that's really just like I said, mechanical knowledge,
Yeah.
game sense, and hand-eye coordination. Whereas, like, if you're playing football, it's pretty much a 90% chance that you're gonna be dead by 45 with a
Hot
concussion.
take. I think esports are superior to physical sports.
I
Hold
think
on,
that the
hold
two are
on.
mutually
This is
exclusive, so I can agree.
I'm throwing this in because I know for a fact esports generate more money as a collective of all esports than a single type of like baseball, football, or like a specific kind of game.
What are you counting in your
What
when
is
you
it?
count?
What is it just about money?
You're painting a really
Yeah.
broad brush here. I mean, you're saying
You're like-
all of esports makes more
Video
money
games
than
video
one
games
individual
make more money
sport.
than most media. Did you guys not know this?
Well, okay, no, hold
They make a
on.
lot
Like,
more
what are you
money than most
comparing it to?
media.
Because I know single players get paid millions and millions of dollars. That's single players on a team, right? And you add up all that money, I guarantee your fucking League of Legends, tournament won't pay that much.
I mean, compared to soccer, especially, you can't beat that. Cristiano
How much do they
Cristiano
get paid?
Ronaldo won. What was he getting paid? Like 50 million fucking euros or some shit. Was his signing for like a
Should
2 or
invest in
3 year
Dogecoin.
contract? He's the best soccer player in the world. Like, you can't argue that esports players have the same value as an actual athlete. They just don't,
Yeah.
because every generation, every year that comes out, some new 12-year-old is cranking fucking 90s like no one's business on Fortnite, and all the pros are just like, who's Ninja? Who gives a shit about Ninja? He's not even the best
Hey,
at Fortnite
can I-
anymore.
Can I say something real quick?
Go.
Totally off topic, and just so this whole cryptocurrency thing happening right now, right? Let
Yeah,
me just
fair.
say, I
Diamond hands,
invested
baby.
I invested 500 into a cryptocurrency today. That's gonna go
Doge?
up. I heard a lot tomorrow. Not Doge. It's called XRP, and I've made $220 so far.
I hear you, but I already invested in Doge, and I'm holding the
saying.
line, baby.
You
Diamond
can hold the
hands,
line,
baby.
but this is gonna boost tomorrow, and I thought I was.
I am refusing to play these
pragmatic
games.
about it, but I was
The
fucking
only
wrong.
reason the Doge didn't hit $1 yet is because Robinhood is making everyone hold for 5 days. That's honest to God it.
Oh
Next
really?
week,
It's gonna be
middle of
staggered then, huh?
Middle of next week. I mean, it already has gone up since they've made
been
it.
watching it too.
dropped down to 2 cents, and then now it's back up to like 3.5 cents.
We've moved on
And it's
from
only
video
gonna go
games to
back up.
gambling. Yeah,
Sorry,
everyone.
yeah, I just had to bring that up. I saw in chat said Dogecoin. I thought about myself, and I was like, oh
That's 'cause
shit.
on my chat, on my stream, I keep talking about Dogecoin and diamond hands and going to the moon. And at this
It's
point,
hilarious. We'll have to see if Dogecoin goes up. I don't care. We're moving on. Okay. But
Daddy
why
Musk is gonna take us to Mars.
I think I value esports a lot more. Besides my fucking joke rant, I think I value esports way more than I value physical sports because of the fact that it's not barring a huge amount of people from playing. Physical sports require a huge amount of, extra time, extra training to be physically in shape, and
Yeah.
It takes a toll on your body more than video games do. And video games, I think, in esports are more accessible to, the average person than sports would be, because
And
anybody.
Sorry.
Wait, what?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I cut you off.
No, I was pretty much done.
No, it's that accessibility is exactly why sports should be held in a higher regard than esports. Because not just anyone can grab a mouse and a keyboard and do it competitively. Like, you have
Yeah.
to spend your whole fucking life. I don't like sports, but you got to change your whole life dedicated to this sport without even really, like, with a very small chance of success. Look at Olympic gymnasts, dude. Like, that's not something that you just do because you got good, because you played fucking League of Legends in your off time a lot, or you're a fucking nerd like me and watch like hundreds of hours a week of Dead by Daylight content to get better.
Yeah.
Like, if I can stand in the ring with my, like, people that I watch, the content creators I watch at a competitive level, with the hours I have, it should tell you any Joe Schmo can do this. It's not hard. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
comparable.
And I think that like the grind that it takes to become a professional athlete is not always fun. It is really, 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 really hard. And the grind to become a professional gamer is 100% you're playing video games and you're having a great, or you're losing at the game and you're pissed off, or whatever. And yeah, there might be some strategy that you gotta study, like especially when it comes to League of Legends. It can get really complicated when it comes to people choosing what lane that they're going to go in and what champion they're playing as and all this kind of stuff, and their DPS, and we don't have to get into all that, the specifics, but yeah, I think that, like, when it comes to being a professional athlete, like, you gotta exercise and you gotta work out, and it's not always fun and it's painful, and there's like,
And someone
like
pointed
Nick
out
said,
in chat that one bad
like-
injury ends the career.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, true. It's like not, like you said, it's like not anybody can do it, and
Not even one bad injury, one bad
I
day.
can understand having a little bit more like interest in esports because anyone can do it, but I don't think that.
But like in terms of skill, you don't
It should-
compare it.
I-
It's not like at
No,
any way
I-
level.
I think that esports skill is respectable because I don't have the time and I don't want to take the time to be that good at a game, but I don't think that it should be held in equal regards to like somebody who's spent their entire life training to get to the Olympics. It's not the same.
Yeah. I
It's
agree.
they're different, and that's why I feel weird about seeing esports on ESPN.
That's kind
I
of
mean,
partially
like,
what prompted the
how
question, because like
letters fit esports.
Hmm?
I mean, it's esports, ESPN. I feel like maybe
it fits a little bit better.
Yeah.
Well, it's entertainment sports program network or some stuff,
Yeah,
it-
but if you didn't have to
it's-
say E part, you say E.
you just
Right.
sports.
Just
Would you
really
would you
change it
would
to
you be
E.
okay with
Entertainment network.
esports just being changed to sports at some point in the
No.
future?
because it's
No.
not a sport.
It's
I think the fact that it's even
Entertainment,
called
EPN.
I think the fact that it's even called esports in the first place is egregious. I think that there's probably a different term that they could have used for it, but it's just
E-comp.
it's just the shortest way of saying, yeah, it's competitive gaming.
yeah. And then there's a big difference. I know Al keeps saying chess in chat. He's bringing it up, but it's considered a sport. It's not a sport. Chess is a competitive game, sure,
Chess is not a
but
sport.
it's
Like
just
they-
a
it
game,
is a
and there's a
sport.
difference.
But then what
Yeah, it
determines
was
whether
sport.
something's a sport? Because at
So-
some point, every single one of these games was just a game, and it's offset. Baseball was just some people hitting something with a stick. Soccer was literally just kicking something around with your feet. All of these
Yeah.
things started off as
All right, I
No,
got the
not in
Merriam
space.
Webster.
How do you not know your own heritage?
I think
We
there's a
invented
difference.
soccer.
isn't soccer
a
from
pretty
like
bit-
like Europe, or is that from here?
No,
No,
literally-
are you talking about like the hip things that Aztecs do to hit it into the hoop, or is that what you're talking about? That sacrificial battle that they have?
I mean, essentially, yes. It's where it's developed around.
Yeah, but
Like,
I'm
it's
saying
all-
most sports that we have started off as games. Most of them, soccer being a main exception because bloody history. But like most of these things just start off as a pastime too. So what
See, the
stops a
thing is,
video game from
Francisco-
being a sport if it's just the same
Physical
pastime in the
exertion.
future?
Francisco,
That's
the
what I
thing
put in
is
chat.
that
Physical exertion.
all sports are games, but not all games are sports.
Mm-hmm. We had a discussion in 10th grade in Mr. Barnes' class. We talked about what defines a sport. Why golf, for example, isn't a sport. I mean, and that I guess
Not a
this
sport?
was not in the definitions that we all had agreed on as a class. We narrowed it down to 3 factors, which I still think are very fairly applicable when defining what's a sport. And one of them is there needs to be a certain level of physical exertion or physical activity, which does disqualify things like chess. Another one was that it has to have a set scoring system. And so you can't just make like arbitrary things like I'd say diving. It's not really a sport. It's a fun activity and it's competitive, sure. But
It's
there's so many
an-
factors that go into deciding what score is given, and the scores are all subjective as hell as well. It wouldn't be fair to argue that, it's, I guess, on the same par as like baseball or even something like racing, which doesn't require physical activity, but is very competitive and has a really strict scoring system and gameplay system. You can't just go fast in F1. You have to go fast and follow the rules of the course, which can be docked for going too fast. Like there's
But you're
ways you
kind of
have
just
to do it,
sitting there and driving a
which
car.
is why I would say it's not a sport either.
Hmm.
And I don't think
But I
it's
wouldn't
considered a
consider
sport.
F1 a game either. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah,
Okay, so here's a controversial question. I know it's not my podcast, but I've been dying to ask it.
What?
Curling. Curling, is it a game or a sport?
That's the one with the broom.
That's the one where you
Yeah,
scoop
where they
the.
scoop the ice and
Yeah.
they
Broom and the rock, and you gotta get it. It's like shuffleboard on.
It has physical
skate.
exertion.
Nice.
It completes the
Is it a
satisfaction.
sport?
Marge
It's a
Simpson
sport.
sweated when she did it in that Simpsons
It's a
episode.
sport.
That's true. Chris
Yeah.
brings up some solid evidence.
Simpsons.
It's definitely a sport. in
Okay,
the same
then-
vein that I would say bowling is a sport.
Sure. Okay, I could see that. But then what if in the future video games became more like you had to use more physical exertion to do these things, like you went into like a VR.
So like VR.
With a VR game, then it would be a sport because it's not
So would
video gaming. It's not
Dance
yeah,
Dance
I don't-
Revolution be a sport?
Is Dance Dance
think
Revolution a sport?
definition
No, Chris
I don't
brings
think
up a
you-
good question.
Does the word apply? If I change the definition of the word to make it apply, fuck yes. Okay, sure, totally.
Yeah,
why
I
not?
didn't change shit though.
No,
I don't-
does
I
Dance
don't-
Dance
no, no,
Revolution
no,
count
no,
as a
no.
sport? Does Dance Dance Revolution count as a sport? It has physical exertion, has a set of rules, has a set point
It has
system,
to be competitive Dance Dance.
and competitive Dance Dance. Is it a sport?
Has to be competitive.
I'd argue then that yeah, competitive dance because the scoring system is set, but dancing isn't a
Yeah.
sport because well, how do you score a dance? Oh man, she really fucking hit that triple pirouette. When she got into first position, let me tell you, man, you could tell there was something different about this
So-
girl.
But people
Your
do
definition
score
of a
dances
sport
like
is
this in
based
like
on a
ice skating and
strict-
roller rinking.
Rigid and predetermined scoring system.
Yeah, it can't be arbitrary or subjective. I think that that's
Gotcha.
unfair to say that you can just change the score because you feel like it.
But Dance Dance Revolution's score system isn't arbitrary. It's based
Exactly.
That's what he's saying.
Predetermined
Yeah,
set.
he's
That's
saying
what
it
I'm
is a
saying.
sport, but normal
So
dance
for
is
that, it
not.
would fall in the category of the requirements, I'd say. I'm not a hypocrite, man. If something I
I
said,
think it's,
I mean,
I
it's
think,
there.
I think it overlaps too much into the realm of being a video game to be a sport, in my personal opinion. But
that's fair.
yeah, I can't disagree with you though.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Esports aren't sports.
so we've all
Nope.
kind of concluded that esports are not sports, and they shouldn't be called. Should they not be called esports then? What
No,
should they
they
be called?
I don't think that they should be
Comps?
called.
Gaming.
Comps, just
Yeah.
like e-comps,
Yeah,
video
comps
game
is good.
comps.
Pubs and comps, skirmishes, whatever.
All right, I can see that.
Like the fact that they would use the word scrimmage, you know, in a Super Smash Bros tournament, just makes me roll my eyes.
Oh, I feel that.
Used to scrimmage when I had my own TF2 team back in high school.
Oh my god, dude, the League of Legends community kills me. The fucking jerseys they buy. I was late to an A's game. I had really good fucking tickets for because the League of Legends Worlds qualifiers were happening in Oakland that
Hey,
day.
I'll
I'm
watch
so
that
mad
shit.
about
Fuck
it.
you.
Fuck off.
I don't play League, but I'll watch the comp league any day. It's entertaining.
Why? It's just gonna be the Koreans winning. They always win.
Ah.
It's true.
I root for the French.
I have never gotten to League of Legends, and I don't ever want to go next to that
Yeah.
that Dead Sea of Salt.
I never
I've
want to
seen
play it.
people play, and I'm like, oh no.
I can
Which
see
you know
where
what?
I
This
was
brings
right, though.
me into a different question. What did Al say? While I change the question.
Competitive Rainbow Six is more interesting. I totally believe that because Rainbow Six is super tactical. Like
Yeah.
making the wrong choice on the heroes on your team. I know they're not operators. That's the word. The operators will change how the game is fucking played. Like you have to be playing the game before you get in the lobby to win a Rainbow Six.
Well, that's
So
how
I'd
League
say
is
it's-
too.
Yeah,
You gotta ban heroes and stuff. You gotta ban
Yeah.
heroes. If the enemy team bans a hero, you gotta ban another hero based on that hero sometimes. Just because if you let one hero slide and you don't have that hero to counter it, you're screwed. Like there's like a bunch of heroes too. Like I get Siege has like what, like 12 to 15?
Siege has like
League
30.
has so many.
I know.
Oh,
League has
okay.
like 170. It's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
That's why I like it. It's a strategy like comp game.
Perfect segue, because we were talking about one of the most toxic gaming communities that I know about.
Rust.
Are
Hey,
Gaming-
whoa.
we will get into Rust. We will get into Rust
does
then.
not compare to
Shh,
League, okay?
Shh, let me say the question first, and then we can yell at each other. Okay, are gaming communities more toxic than sports communities?
No. No one's
What is
burned
the
down a
question?
city or murdered someone over a fucking esports tournament.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
agree.
not true. That's not true. There was somebody who got killed at a Madden tournament, but you don't hear about it as often. You know, like you don't see people climbing up light posts and stuff for gaming tournaments. Meanwhile,
You don't
like,
have riots in cities for
and-
esports events.
yeah. Any time that a Philadelphia team is in a sports in a championship, a building's getting burned down.
Okay.
That building is
As a Steelers fan, I have to
Sorry.
say it's true,
Well,
but
I love me the Steelers and the Penguins, but let's be real here, they don't love their
Yeah.
fucking.
No, like Phillies fans are like just historically the most destructive and worst fans.
Okay, well, I mean,
Like-
not the most destructive because
You can
the
I can
Dodgers
point
are
you to
pretty
a
shitty.
podcast to listen to. The Philadelphia sports fans are the worst. But yeah,
It's just a whole thing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that it'd be fair to say that like gamers use gamer words more often than sports fans.
I was about to say, go into that because the conversations that I've had from people on Xbox Live all the way up to today have been some of the most frustrating and racist, sexist, homophobic, the worst kinds of conversations I've ever heard in my entire life.
that
I've
comes
never
from the
experienced
medium,
that
though.
ever.
Yeah,
That
while
comes
being
from
a
the medium of
participating-
not having a face.
it's anonymity.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
the anonymity that lets people do that, and like at the
But you're
same
anonymous
time,
when you go to a sports game. Technically, you don't
No, you're not.
know anybody.
If someone goes to a sports game and says the N word, they're gonna get their ass beat. They're guaranteed.
Yeah.
If you go
got
on
your-
Call of Duty and say it, what are they gonna fucking do? Call your mommy? Maybe dogs you?
No,
What
they're
the
gonna say
hell
they
shit is
fucked your mom.
Yeah.
and like I guess it kind of depends on what you're looking at too, because like in the gaming community, like somebody said yeah, like they're talking in chat about swatting.
Yeah,
and,
so that's
about-
part of
about-
toxicity.
about-
That's actually
and about
dangerous.
people who have actually killed each other over gaming feuds and stuff like that.
I
Like,
think there's a
Mortis
lot more
Interest says
internal
there was
toxicity.
an MMO where a guy got a rare sword and his buddy literally killed him over
Well,
it.
you can't
So-
compare the numbers.
Oh no, you can't exactly.
but
there's
but is that only because it's a new medium and not a new like medium for the games? Like it's a technology that came out recently when sports have been around for a lot longer.
First of all, the majority of gamers are fucking pussies. Let's start there. Well, that's number
Yeah.
one, baby. That's number one, baby.
Pair
I,
of flapping meat
I also
flaps.
think that like these sports rivalries, like everybody hating the Dodgers, or
Oh, fuck the Dodgers.
Oh, Gabby will
et
fight you
cetera.
guys. She loves the Dodgers.
Hey, Gabby,
Sure.
fuck the Dodgers.
Bad in the chat.
you know where I live. Roll
all
up.
around. But I think that those sports rivalries have been going on for so much longer, and it appeals to so much wider of an audience that it catches a lot more people in its net, I suppose. Meanwhile, like a lot of the gaming toxicity, it does happen online, but like the shitty stuff that happens at like at stadiums, if the A's lose, somebody might get shot in the parking lot.
Oh, I've had that fear.
Yeah. So they're similar but different, and their consequences just have different ramifications. It's a lot of these questions of comparing the gaming community to the sports community it's apples to oranges. And I know Little Dicky says, why can't fruit be compared?
But then,
Yeah.
okay, then let me throw this at
But-
you. We're all
That's why I would
hold
never
on.
say apples and oranges. I would say apples and giraffes. Completely
Like,
fucking
don't listen
different.
to Little
Yeah,
Dicky.
true. There you go.
Why can't fruit be compared? But here, let me throw you with this. We're not girl gamers. Do you think a girl gamer might have a different answer? A female gamer?
Absolutely. But that's not about the gaming. That's about being a woman in general. That's misogyny across the board.
And I think there's
Then wouldn't
misogyny
you
in
say that,
sports,
like filters into it a little bit more prevalently because it's
I mean, let's
different
look,
medium?
let's look at the Cowgirls, the Dallas Cowgirls, or the Raiderettes. Let's look at the fact that the women's soccer team makes less than the men do, even though they have a higher
Yeah.
viewership and are a better team objectively. Like, no, women are always going to be facing shit in any community because they're women.
Yeah.
And that's just inherent misogyny.
Yeah.
Gamers
They're-
are shitty too, but I mean, for the most part, a lot of them are just fucking incel ass simps. Like, they're just going to give
Yeah.
you money.
Can't
Not
say
so
that
they
on
won't
stream.
say disgusting, horrible things.
Yeah. I think
I can't
it's-
say gamer words.
like-
Switch doesn't like them.
whether we're looking at it from
gamer
whether we're looking at it from a man's or a woman's perspective, they're both going to have issues, and maybe probably different issues in the same communities than we are, I guess. So yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, as a tier 3 Pokemon sub, I think that I'm well equipped to say.
Oh my god.
Like seafood. Like seafood, you little shrimp.
Oh, Quinton's
Okay,
She's toxic.
let's move
She's
on
my
because
queen.
we are we're not getting to 2 hour mark, but I want to get more questions done. But I do want to talk about it because we have a lot of viewers right now, and I want to talk about my weird ass fucking
Your
gaming
conspiracy?
theory, my weird conspiracy theory, because this is something
God.
dumb
didn't
that I
read all
wanted to
this.
talk about. So a while ago, a lot of people and this game played this game that blew up, and it was called Among Us. And it was all about finding the imposter among you, the person who stood out, the person who was different, the person who was dangerous. And I like to think and joke that this is all a precursor, a foreshadowing to political tensions inside of the United States. And then with Rust's current recent boom, it's foreshadowing an even darker situation of economic and societal collapse. What do you think about my weird ass conspiracy theory?
Shut the.
I think that you're making a lot of conclusions here.
You don't think I'm just connecting the dots?
Okay, I mean,
Have
like
you
maybe
have a
the
bulletin
dots
board?
are on the page, but you're not connecting them by number. I'm telling you that.
I think that correlation is not causation.
Yeah.
I think it kind of falls in line with people looking at stuff in The Simpsons in hindsight and being like, they predicted
Simpsons
all this
did it.
kind of stuff. And
We
they predicted this thing happening, and it's exactly what happened. It's because
You
I don't
haven't
know.
like
There's plenty of movies that have been about pandemics and stuff like that, and fuck, even the cyberpunk like tabletop role playing game mentions a pandemic in 2020. Like, it doesn't mean that our Talsorian games predicted.
So does.
How
the
do you know?
Illuminati card game.
How do you know that the Illuminati didn't write those games? How do you think? How do you know they didn't influence all these gamers on Twitch?
How do you
because
know
at that point
that
it's a faith thing. It's like a
it's
religion at
just
that
isn't
point
a
because there's no proof.
simulation, and
It's-
we're all
it's
just
social-
acting AI?
It's all just social conditioning. That's what putting all these futuristic stuff in movies is, because they're preparing us.
Yeah, I mean, if everyone's writing some
Coming to
shit
grips
about
with-
Are video
about
games
what the
training
future-
simulations for when we get invaded?
When
All I want, as long as
When
I get
you get
mantis
invaded.
arms, I'm cool.
If everyone is making predictions about the future for their medium, then eventually something's gonna fucking land. I mean, it's just monkeys and typewriters.
Yeah, I think it's far fetched, but I can't subscribe to it.
yeah.
No, that's totally fair. It's like a half joke idea that I just wanted to throw out there. But like low key, like I have been thinking about this a lot. No, because one, I just like these kinds of thought experiments because I don't know, but like when I was playing Among Us, it's teaching you how to gaslight each other. It's teaching you how to lie to each other. It's teaching you how to get away with this scary shit. And I am going to get political a little bit right now because in the United States government, there was an insurrection on January 6th to overthrow a duly elected government and attempted. And right now, we're pretty much just seeing the ramifications of people playing Among Us in real life. Like, who is dangerous? Who is the person who is a traitor? Who is the person who has usurped their power to undermine the other people inside the government?
Conspiracy theorists. Sorry, go ahead, Quinn.
I think that games like Among Us kind of they play off of kind of a base human sense of insight and your ability to lie and all this kind of stuff, but it's nothing new. Like, we were playing Mafia in high school in the drama room. It's the same fucking thing. You know, these kind of concepts have been around for a really long time because it's a social experiment. It's kind of a challenge. But I wouldn't say that it's predicting anything in specific because the concept of what Among Us is based on is so long.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
same.
Also, we're not in
Yeah.
space. We're not
Yeah,
astronauts
in
without
space.
arms.
Right, and I mean, sure, the little spacemen and the spaceship and being in space can all theoretically be symbolic of something else, but I just don't think that it's that deep. I just think that somebody wanted to make a Mafia game set in space.
There is a movie
then
set in
it blew up.
space where someone is not what they seem, and that's called Alien. When the motherfucker road androids fucking betray everybody else, all right, and no one knew it was an android. Actually,
Right.
that may have been the second one, Aliens, where she didn't know it was an android. That was the
Sure.
second one, Aliens, yeah, and she got upset. But it was a good android
Or-
at that time, so. It was okay.
Or let's go back even farther with John Carpenter's The Thing. It's Among Us the movie.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think,
Shape-shifting.
like I said, that concept has been
Yeah, the idea of
Done to death. It's
yeah,
common.
the idea of that the bad guy could be anyone, you know, like I think that's
every fucking
I,
slasher
I
movie.
yeah, I think that it's
Oh.
like the Scream movies. I think that it's just playing off of this base human instinct of trying to figure out who among us is not
What
as
they
they say,
appear.
or yeah, you know, because it could be anybody. Fuck, there's people on my street that had the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and they have Trump stickers and stuff, and you wouldn't know it if you just had met them at the grocery store or something like that. So it could be anyone.
Dude, I'm a fucking biracial person with a Mexican ass dad, and I still have white supremacists in my family.
Yeah,
Like hardcore, you know, like rolling with the Klan. I mean, I don't like them. I don't talk to them. I
right.
hope that they, get oofed somehow. But
Self
like it exists, you know. It's a thing. You don't know. I think that the thing with games like Among Us and anything about like lying in general is humans are liars. All of us lie almost every moment of our lives. Everything we do is whether it's to ourselves or others. I think that most of our day is trying to either fit in some way or, I guess, give off an appearance of a certain type of person. It's all manufactured authenticity. It's so
Yeah.
rare to be your authentic self fully with people because there's a lot of fear and danger in that. I mean, Brandon's big thing with Evangelion is just that we want to get close to people, but we can't because for them to really know us means they can really reject us, and that hurts a lot more than them rejecting a construct that we've created for ourselves.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's easier to lie. It's the path less or the path of least resistance, right? Anything wants to go that way. Water, fucking electricity, even humans. So lying makes it easy, but at the same time, it takes courage and like some sort of strength to not lie, knowing that that can be and might be like the better decision for a society more than yourself.
Yeah, and I think that to get back to, I guess, somewhat more of like the political tie of the original intent, I guess, of the question, is that like I think with the timing of how Among Us has become so popular lately, I think that it has brought that concept of it could be anyone, you know, a little bit more to the forefront of our current collective consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And people are thinking about it more, and that anybody could lie about anything, and some people are better liars than others, and all that kind of
Sus.
stuff. Yeah, so like I've played Among Us with people who have been the imposter and are just god awful liars every time because they're just bad liars, and then you know, but at the same time, you know, it's like I think that it's still just one of those games like Mafia and all that kind of stuff that is a test of like how good of a liar can
Mhm.
you be? How good of a liar can your friends be without any actual real consequences and stuff? So you get to really see the deviousness that underlies in anybody who
Yeah,
plays
any
it.
person.
Yeah, any person who ends up being the imposter, and if they're really bad at it, then you know it just goes to show that maybe they're just a bad liar or something like that, or they're just not taking it seriously. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a better test of personality and honesty and people's ability to lie than it is like prediction of this is the way that society is becoming these days.
All right.
Because I mean, humans have always been like that.
Yeah, we always have been.
There have always been.
That's why
liars.
Clue is Clue is one of the most like well-loved board games.
Yeah.
That's why
Yeah, it's that same thing.
crime
It's
shows are
trying to
super
figure out
popular.
whether or not it was, you know, the butler in the parlor room with the candlestick, you know, who did it.
Or if it was the imposter in the electrical.
Yeah, it's the classic concept of a whodunit, but interactive.
People like mystery. It's fun to figure something out, and the release you get, the reward center of your brain releases that when you do it, when you get it right. I can't talk.
Well, yeah, when
Fuck
you
me.
solve the puzzle, when you actually like put
Yeah.
like all the things together.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. You feel like you accomplished something, even if it was just a game.
Without actually having to kill your friend.
Yeah,
Thankfully.
that's the only drawback.
Like
Darn,
all
I
of
just
the-
wanted to kill everybody.
All of the lying is real, but none of it is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Plus, I think it was also one of the games.
So I feel like that lets people go to a really dark place, because I think that like especially when it comes to sociopaths and people who are actually killing each other. Like, they don't think that there's any consequences, so they don't have to worry about those consequences because they don't care about them.
Mm-hmm.
But in Among Us, there are no actual consequences, so you don't have to care about the ramifications of committing murder. So you can just do it. So
why do you think it so often turns angry?
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, it appeals to this base human instinct.
Oh, okay.
That I think is just really interesting.
I think it's interesting too. I think it was one of the best games because it, like, during this pandemic where a lot of people were kind of separate from each other, it was like one of the only games where you could have 10 people like all just hanging out, and it kind of made it like a dinner party game almost, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can invite people over or invite people in the game. You could all hang out and talk and lie to each other and just like chit chat and talk shit.
It was a really good social experiment for sure.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
Yep.
So my weird conspiracy theory is over. And I'm going to change it to something that we kind of touched a little bit about earlier. I'm going to change the question. Hold up. I'm going to change the question here, but I'm going to say it out loud for you guys. How do you guys feel about loot boxes in video games? And how do you feel about free-to-play games with buyable cosmetics?
I don't care. If people waste their money on it, it's not my prerogative. Like, if I see something and I bought something for Call of Duty the other day because I liked it, like, it's not forced. If it's a free game, especially like Warzone is, like, fuck it, they make their money. Like, I think people with loot boxes and shit, like, multiplayer games, call me, I guess, what's the word? Maybe I'm used to it now, but I really don't care because I play a game for the game.
I mean, the thing is that there's a difference between like a game where it's appropriate to have, like, I guess not a loot box, but it's appropriate to have like in-game purchases or microtransactions, versus a game that is psychologically developed in order to prey on your stupid monkey brain. And I think that's where the difference comes in. Games like Genshin Impact and other gacha games, and I'm in the middle of a fucking gacha game addiction right now. I play every night, every morning, so I can maximize the amount of AP I get in my fucking gacha game. But my stupid monkey brain says if you get the rare person, your life will be better, because it's a stupid monkey brain, and all it knows is that it needs serotonin. It needs it so bad. And that's what they do. They prey on that addictive nature of humans and the addictive nature of gambling, because it is just gambling.
Oh yeah, it's virtual gambling without any actual like tangible reward, which is which is what makes me think that it's even worse than actual gambling, because like at the end of the day, like, it's all zeros and ones. Like, by playing that game, you've signed an end user license agreement. They could take it away at any moment. That's not a real reward. Yeah, I think that it's worse than gambling. But when it comes to like cosmetics and stuff like that, I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's in a multiplayer game where people who are spending money get better drops faster, and it gives them an edge over people who can't afford it or just don't have the time to grind to earn that equipment, like, I think that that's kind of bullshit. That makes it pay to win. And microtransactions where it's like, oh, you can't beat this ridiculously hard in the middle of a couple of easy levels. Well, why don't you just pay $2.99 and jump to level 5? You know, Candy Crush, perfect example. I mean,
like
my
mobile
parents
games.
play the hell out of Candy Crush. I don't think my dad has spent a cent on it, but he also sits on his phone and plays it for a really long time. But not everybody is willing to do that. Some people are just lazy. Some people, like Nico said, give into that addictive serotonin rush of, oh yeah, I get to move on to the next level, and they don't mind spending a couple bucks. But
and some people just are like, money means nothing to me, so plop, 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 plop.
Yeah, I mean, and people who have the disposable income, especially in, like I said, in multiplayer games, their financial position shouldn't put them ahead of the competition.
Well, and if people with the disposable income to spend money like that were going to anyway, like, you were already going to get that whale. At this point, you're kind of just, I guess, trying to force other people who are less able or less fiscally sound or secure to do the same thing, to enjoy something that ultimately is meant to relieve the stress of their everyday life.
Yeah, and it's like, if you want to roll die for, you know, a special skin for your character or for your gun, like, whatever, you know, I don't care about that. I played the Avengers game. I did unfortunately spend money on skins, but, you know, I just think that the loot box system is like, it's just kind of wacky. But if it doesn't affect the gameplay, then I don't really care. Like I think the EA botched it with the Star Wars Battlefront loot boxes, especially with like different moves and stuff that heroes could get. But other games where it's literally just
Yeah, if
cosmetic.
like who cares?
Because like
If people
I
want to
want
spend their money to make their character look a certain way, I don't
So
give a shit.
is it the game's fault for providing a gambling option?
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
if it's set up in a way that is psychologically developed to do so, like a gotcha game, absolutely the game's fault. You're
Yeah.
praying. I mean, it's like saying, is it really like the alcohol company's fault for putting a Budweiser sign at an AA meeting? Yes, that's they fucking knew what they were doing. They knew what they
Yeah.
were doing when they did it. Accidentally doing it or triggering someone, or someone who's just dumb and does it because they want to, or not dumb, I guess, but has the time and the inclination to, that's different. But
Mhm.
as someone who's like a recovering addict, like you can't, I absolutely can blame you for purposely creating something to trigger me without seriously advertising that it's possible to trigger someone's addiction. Like if a gotcha game said, hey, by the way, everything in here is gambling. If you have an addictive personality or you're someone who has a history of addiction, you probably should not get involved in this sort of thing. I'd be like, okay, yeah, at that point, they gave you the fair warning to step away now. Anything else is your fault. But they
so
purposely
then do you
don't.
agree with what I think a couple EU countries have done, which is like restricting loot boxes for certain like every games, like everyone rated E for everyone games, so like kids games, so like
Absolutely.
they prevent children from gambling
yeah.
this way?
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think we
Kids
should
shouldn't
have
be
that in the
gambling.
US?
It starts
Yeah.
them young, and they fall into it. Kids shouldn't be gambling. Kids shouldn't be drinking. Kids shouldn't be smoking. And I understand that these are realities of the world, and they're going to come into it at some point. But you're targeting kids, and that's the difference.
Yeah.
You are. It's
Yeah,
like it's like Juul manufacturing tasty, fruity flavors and advertising to children, and then saying, "Oh no, man, we don't know how they got it. That should just happen sometimes."
yeah.
Fuck you.
And it's especially in games where like if the game is completely playable from start to finish and you can experience all the content that you want without having to pay a dime, then that's awesome. And if you want to have microtransactions to get some extra content or whatever, that's great. But yeah, as soon as they become predatory, where it's, playing off of people's addiction to, oh, I just gotta buy another crate just to see if I can get this item, all this kind of stuff.
Mhm.
That's when I think that it gets kind of gross.
And people
And
really struggle with sunk
gotcha
costs.
games definitely do that. I think that, like with Genshin Impact, like if you grind, then you can earn the in-game currency to buy those loot boxes, which I think
It's
is
a lot,
okay.
though.
But it's a
Yeah.
lot.
The
Yeah,
numbers
someone
show
who,
that it's not even really doable unless it's your
Yeah,
full-time
tough.
job, and I'm talking overtime, baby.
Yeah.
I played a
it's
lot
not-
of Genshin when it came out,
Yeah.
and that shit was fucking a grind.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
kind of what it's kind of why I don't think I like loot boxes in general, because it kind of leads to these predatory practices from gaming companies where they literally mathematically map out how much effort do I have to make you put into the video game to where you give up and just pay me money, which I think is fucking ridiculous. And I don't like practices like that at all. But then I think about something like Apex Legends, where like literally it's just purely cosmetic loot boxes. It is loot boxes, and you do get that monkey brain rush, but you don't need the skins. You don't need to have the coolest looking gun. You don't need to have this certain like banner thing. You don't need it to play the game, because the game is still there and you can still enjoy it and play it. And then they have skins that are like 20 fucking bucks, and I'm like, why would anyone pay $20 for one specific skin? That's pretty much another game.
Hey, dude, I'm playing a phone gotcha game right now. Of course, and I'm a weeaboo, so of course it's a fucking anime girl game. And I've sunk into this mobile free-to-play game like $70 at this point, man. I'm paying more than a AAA game, and I don't blame the company for doing it, because they're relatively upfront with the fact that they just want your money. They're pretty upfront in what this game really is, and I was able to access all of the stuff that I wanted that was blocked from easily being accessible without paying for it online. So I'm playing now because I actually enjoy the game. I actually enjoy the competitive mechanics of the game, and I enjoy the big titty anime girls of the game. So there's a lot of things about it that like I personally can enjoy, but they don't act like they're not trying to take my money and get me as a person hooked on this game in an addictive way. And that's the thing I brought up that I brought up in the chat, and I said is it might not stop an addict from stepping into the casino, but it removes culpability. At that point, it's not your fault because the addict is purposefully seeking to continue their behavior. They were warned not to. They were given a chance to turn around and walk away and make a choice to not relapse into their negative behavior. If they do, we need accountability. That's on you. The gaming company is not at fault. They warned you that this was addicting and that they were making it to be addicting to you, and you said, "Bet, sign me up. Let's go, baby. I'm on like 10 shares." That's on you, man. That's on you.
All right, I can see how that is. I also do. This is the other the double-edged sword of like loot boxes and stuff like that. It does let games be supported by whales and people who will just continuously gamble. Like I said earlier, like Apex Legends, completely free to play game, and it's completely supported by people buying things because it looks cool and it's by cosmetics. And I'm really glad that most games kind of adopted this idea that nothing should be pay to win, like ever. But we do have moments where it is like that. Like there's certain skins in Call of Duty Warzone that like make it harder for people to see you when you're in certain areas of the game or certain areas of the map. And that's technically kind of almost pay to win because it makes you have a better reaction time than someone shooting at you, which is super important in a shooter. So what do you think about situations like that where they kind of pretend like this isn't pay to win, but it kind of is? I'm not saying and accusing Activision of doing this intentionally because it could be just a total bug on the skin.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. It's like at that point you're telling people to restrict their,
Their creativity.
cosmetics, based on the fact that it could be situationally productive. So I don't think it's a good argument.
Okay.
Though the fucking tracer round fucked me up, I'll tell you that. Hate that shit.
Yeah, like I think that like if loot boxes are dropping where players have a chance to get an item that gives them an advantage over other players and they had to spend money to get it, like I think that that's unethical for sure. And like one of the best examples that I can think of is especially with Star Wars 2, like there were some moves that like you could get for like the fact that you could unlock moves for heroes through boxes, and like there was this one move for Darth Maul or something that was just incredibly busted, and anybody who happened to spend the money to get the loot crate to get that move was just decimating the competition because it was so poorly balanced. And I think that that shit is definitely unethical from a gaming ethics and a business ethics standpoint. Like,
do you think they should have tethics?
Tethics? Yeah.
But shout out to anyone who saw Silicon Valley and understands where that joke's from. But like it's kind of like I don't know. I don't trust these companies. I know this is gonna sound like super anti like corporation or anything, but like their entire purpose is to just suck you dry of money, and I don't think that they have it in a consumer's best interest to have something fair for everybody.
Well, no, I mean nothing ever is in the consumer's best interest when it comes to the gaming industry these days, except for indie gaming. Like indie game development for sure, because those are people who are trying to make it in the game industry, but they're trying to make games that they think people will like.
But they also like.
I agree notionally.
Yeah, but when it comes to of course, absolutely, sure. But when it comes to like the main AAA gaming industry, like they are making games that you want to play, but they're making them to make money, not because they want to make you happy. You know, it's not altruistic, and I think that goes for all gaming industries, but I think the ones that do the microtransactions are probably the worst offenders.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a business. They're there to make some money. They're there to make a paycheck, and ethics don't make you money. No one's ever become a fucking billionaire by being kind and generous and giving. It's
Gandhi did.
It's inherently antithetical.
I mean, there's a difference between like morality and being a good person and business ethics. Like, you know,
I think everyone subscribes to the idea of like fair play with business.
Well, when it comes to business ethics, it's not about like, you know, being a nice person. It's about just doing business fairly.
But in a free market, there's no such thing as fair.
Exactly.
There's no such thing as fair, but there are such things as taking advantage.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We can't trust the companies to give a shit about us, which is why we have to speak out and put rules on them. because we can't trust them to look out for our interests. We
No.
need to force them to do so. We need to say that we aren't going to buy your product unless your product is ethical, and that's
Yeah,
why,
or like limit loot boxes from like kids 10 and under or 13 and under. Like they don't show up like at all.
like I love Dane. You guys know I love Dane, and he's very different from all of us. Very differing opinions than we have, especially
Mhm.
politically. But one of the things,
I had to delete him on Facebook.
yeah, and that's your prerogative, man.
Yeah.
Like
I
the
understand.
thing with Dane is I have very good conversations with him because we both approach it from a place of respect. We respect each other and we listen to each other's opinions, going into it knowing that we're not going to change each other. The end goal here is not to change our opinions, but to share them and just kind of express how we feel towards someone who might not agree with it and broaden our horizons in that perspective.
And
one of
odds
the-
are, in those situations, you're gonna end up maybe learning something that you didn't
Yeah.
know before. Maybe learning something that you thought was true isn't. Like, I think that there's definitely a lot of good things to come from having discussions with people that don't agree with you, which is why I think that this whole cancel culture, maybe when people deserve it, there's a difference, but when it comes to like
There's a big difference
people
between
getting silenced for having
certain things.
conservative views, like I don't think that they
There's a
should be
difference between
silenced.
saying
People
I
should
have
be
conservative
having a
views and saying like I want Nancy Pelosi shot. There's
Right,
a
right,
big
yeah,
difference.
Yeah,
100%,
but we're not saying.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
not.
where's the
I'm
line?
not trying to defend any of those people. And that's the thing, is that the line is arbitrary. Like,
Exactly.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
decide where it is. And that's what we have to do with these kind of predatory practices with gaming. So I very much think that we kind of should take the EU approach to limit gambling in video games, because this wasn't around when we were kids. We kind of grew up without. Well, actually, I take it back. It was around when we were kids, but in the form of like Pokemon cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff like that, where you got something physical
The OG
for
loot
it.
box, baby.
They were the OG loot boxes, and like I didn't realize this, and I think until we had a conversation on the stream
McDonald's
about
Happy
Yu-Gi-Oh.
Meals.
Low key, that's why they got regulated, because they're kind of loot boxes. Kids would buy the food for the toys, and the U.S. was like, none. That you get toys no matter what, like or something. But like the Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Pokemon cards were never regulated as heavily as people think that loot boxes should be. But at the same time, they also don't have as quick access to credit card information and money. They don't have the ability to spend as much money through, going to Target and buying a pack of cards than they do having a card at home connected to a loot box system.
So, when it comes from the perspective of somebody who is currently very into trading card games, because I play a lot of Magic the Gathering, which is the OG trading card game.
Mm-hmm. OG loot box.
Yep. But I think it's different from loot boxes in that, like, yes, the cards that are going to appear in each pack are randomized, but it's the fact that it is a trading card game. So if you pull something that you don't like or that you're not going to use or you don't think isn't worth very much money, you can use a bunch of those cards, or you can use one of those cards and trade it with people and get what you want out of it. And there's a whole, like, I mean, when it comes to pricing Magic cards, like it's its own stock market, basically.
I mean, look at it. I mean, I know that's not the same level or history, but I was super into Naruto cards, super into Yu-Gi-Oh cards, more so the Naruto than Yu-Gi-Oh.
It's
All
all trading cards are basically the same.
Yeah. The numbers are very different from loot boxes.